Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
We got some Preds tickets to give away today. Preds and Bruins could be a Stanley Cup final preview. Yeah, I'm going to say things like this because the Predators are that good and the Bruins are that good. Could be a Stanley Cup final preview on Tuesday night. We will be giving away tickets later today in the program. And we will have a code word at some point that we'll give away here. So you'll have to be listening for the code word. And then after you listen for the code word, you'll have to be listening to the opportunity to call in when I give you the Q2 call. And then if you follow those steps, you will be seeing the Predators and the Bruins on Tuesday night. And I assume these are pretty good seats. So good luck on that front. So I wanted to start on this today, which is we are less than a month away from the NFL draft. In fact, 1 month from today, the NFL draft will officially be over because it starts on the 25th and it goes through the 27th, and today is the 28th. So 1 month from today, the draft will be over. Joe Alt, Marvin Harrison Jr., Roma Dunze, Olu Fashanu, Johnny Joe, whatever, will know. In fact, I kind of get excited for that because usually the end of the draft season personally means that it's time to get back out on the lake, which I can't wait for. But that's personal, and that's a different discussion. But I have realized that when we enter in that 1 month period before the draft, it turns into lying season. Remember this time last year, every ESPN reporter, Jeremy Fowler, Todd McShay, everybody was saying, oh, yeah, Indianapolis, they love Will Levis. If Will Levis isn't available for Indianapolis at 4, I don't know what Indianapolis is going to do. It was a lie. So everything you hear, you have to let go through your brain, decipher who told who what, why they would tell somebody what they're telling them, and then have it come on out the other side, and then decide for yourself whether or not you believe it. And for the most part, what I'm going to do for the next month, what I vow to do today, is I am not going to take media reports or assumptions about I hear they like and attribute that to fact. And I don't care who's reporting it. I don't care if it's Adam Schefter. I don't care if it's Ian Rappaport. I don't care. I'm going to look at teams' actions. What moves they make, what moves they don't make, what holes they have on their roster. And that's going to tell me what I think is going to happen, which can lead to one way or another the Titans being able to draft Joe Alt with that 7th overall pick. Charles Robinson, Yahoo Sports Insider, was on Robbie and Rex Road today, and he was asked about the J.J. McCarthy hype and Jim Harbaugh talking about offensive line and everything else. And here's what Charles said the root of the J.J. McCarthy hype really is.
So when I start calling around, I'm asking, like, where's this coming from? A number of personnel guys are like pointing the finger at Harbaugh. They're like, the guy won't shut up about the kid. Every time he sits down and someone puts a mic in his face, he's saying, J.J. McCarthy this, J.J. McCarthy that. He's the best quarterback in the draft, like all these different things. And there's a very strong suggestion that a lot of this stuff that's coming out about McCarthy is Harbaugh behind the scenes pushing it. And everybody's like, hey, isn't it convenient that every quarterback that goes in front of him is a good thing for his team? You know, all of a sudden he's sitting at 5 and every single thing, like he needs everything except for quarterback. And at 5, if he can get 4 quarterbacks drafted in front of him, everything's going to be there for him.
Oh, so it's Jim Harbaugh, J.J. McCarthy's coach, who's the one that's telling everybody every chance he gets how great J.J. McCarthy is. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? In fact, in the 2017 draft, the Titans were sitting there at 5. The Jets were 1 pick behind them. And the Jets had Geno Smith kind of entering that lame duck Daniel Jones type season. And as the Titans were sitting there at 5, Deshaun Watson had just come off of winning the national championship against Alabama. And I kept telling people the Titans should be telling every team in the league that the Jets are going to go draft a quarterback. so that way, the pick in front of the Jets, everybody will call up and they will try to acquire that pick. The Titans did no such thing, and I thought, well, I mean, that's crazy. And instead, they picked Corey Davis, which was a terrible mistake. And so Jim Harbaugh is pumping up J.J. McCarthy to everybody that will listen because he wants to be sitting there at 5 with, again, as Charles Robinson said, the ability to pick anybody who's there. But again, forget about what's being reported and what's said and everything else. Let's just assume that that's true. That Arizona and a Harbaugh and the teams that stand to benefit the most by a robust J.J. McCarthy market, they're the ones that are pumping this up. Doesn't that then mean that we should start just thinking about what do teams really need as opposed to what teams are saying they're going to do? What are their moves telling us they're going to do? It's like I've said with the Titans are going to draft Joe Alt with the 7th overall pick. Now, the only way that doesn't happen is if somebody jumps the Titans in order to take Joe Alt, or one of these teams picking 1 through 6 decides they want Joe Alt. But again, remember how the actions tell us what a team is going to do. For instance, let's use the Patriots, a team that really has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but a team that kind of, again, will shape up common sense. The New England Patriots are saying they might not take a quarterback with the 3rd overall pick. There's a rumor out there that the Patriots may not like these 3 guys. They may try to trade out of the pick. They may take Marvin Harrison Jr. and then draft Michael Penix with their high 2nd round pick. Please. They just sent 9 guys to Jaden Daniels' pro day yesterday. And not only did they do that, but for 1 year, $8 million with Jacoby Brissett, they're taking a quarterback. And I think you know that as well as I do. Just like early on in the draft process, there was talk that the Chicago Bears might have to make a decision between Justin Fields or Caleb Williams. And I said the day that Carolina lost and it ensured that Chicago would have the number 1 pick, I said Caleb Williams could be the quarterback there. And now, based upon their actions, we know that to be true. So we know that the first 3 teams are going quarterback. Caleb Williams is going number 1 overall to the Bears. Either Drake May or Jaden Daniels is going to Washington at 2, and whoever doesn't go at 2 is going to New England at 3. That, I think, is pretty simple. Arizona probably wants out of 4. They've already told everybody they'd be willing to move out of 4, and there's no reason to be willing to move out of 4 or to tell everybody that you want to move out of 4 unless you just want to see what everybody else has to offer. Harbaugh wants 4 quarterbacks to go so that he can get his pick of any player possible. That seems to check out as well. And then there's the Giants. The Giants sit there at 6. We're starting to hear now that the Giants are starting to hype up J.J. McCarthy a little bit, right? Private workout, going to the pro day, bringing him in for a visit. Well, again, doesn't it make sense that a team that has 3 tackles, no receivers, and they've already paid Daniel Jones a bunch of money, and they're going to owe Daniel Jones a bunch of money, and they brought in Drew Lock to be the backup? Doesn't it make sense that they would want to hype up J.J. McCarthy too, just in case somebody wants to trade up, or somebody wants to trade up ahead of them, better get ahead of the Giants, and they can get the receiver that they want. And then there's the Titans who want Joe Alt. And so forget about what we hear when it comes to Adam Schefter's reporting, or it comes to Jeremy Fowler or Ian Rappaport or Mike Garafolo or Tom Pelissero. It's almost all lies at this point. Remember going into draft day, everybody thought in 2022 that if you wanted to get the coveted Malik Willis, you had to jump the Pittsburgh Steelers with the 20th pick, because the Pittsburgh Steelers had done absolutely, positively everything to indicate that they loved Malik Willis, except that they drafted Kenny Pickett instead. So when I think about what's going on here, I do think that there's probably some smoke to J.J. McCarthy. I think there may be some teams that view him as the 4th best quarterback, and teams like Denver or Minnesota know that they don't have a quarterback, so they're going to have to do something. But all this talk of J.J. McCarthy going 4th overall and things like that seems kind of manufactured. Seems to me like Harbaugh knows Arizona would like to trade out of the pick. Harbaugh wants to hype up J.J. McCarthy so much that somebody decides, I'll do what it takes, trades to 4, quarterback, and then right there, Jim Harbaugh can draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Doesn't that seem more likely? I mean, they did trade away their best receiver. They don't have any receivers on their roster. They have a Pro Bowl left tackle. Doesn't that seem more likely than anything that's been said? Doesn't it seem more likely that the Giants are making it known that they like J.J. McCarthy because they want somebody else to try to jump ahead into the top 4 or the top 5 so that a Marvin Harrison or a Malik Neighbors drops to them given that they have no wide receiver? And doesn't it make sense for the Titans to be telling people that they like J.C. Latham or that they may be looking to trade out of the pick or that Brian Callahan would want the elite playmaking receiver over the left tackle because they're going to take Alt? When outside of bringing in Andrews Pete for a visit as a swing tackle, they haven't even sniffed the tush of a left tackle in free agency. So again, forget what you're hearing. Forget what people are saying. Just look at what the teams are doing. Last year, I nailed on the head that Indianapolis was going to take Anthony Richardson. And the reason I did was simply because I loved Anthony Richardson. And when I saw the Colts telling everybody how much they loved Will Levis, and I knew that it was going to be quarterback 1-2, and it was going to be in some order Young and Stroud, and then towards the end it was pretty obvious it was going to be Young number 1, I said, they don't want Levis, they want Richardson. That's why they're telling everybody they want Levis. So don't listen to any of all of that scuttlebutt about, oh, yeah, I hear the Chargers, they're interested. I hear the Giants. Forget about that. The Giants signed Jermaine Illuminor, a right tackle. So they've got a first-round left tackle they've paid a boatload of money to. He's their franchise left tackle. They signed a right tackle. They drafted a right tackle 2 years ago. They're not drafting Joe Alt, okay? They're telling us what they're doing. Forget about what's said. Look at the actions. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. And I do wonder if there is a Titans reason for why Jim Harbaugh has floated out all of this offensive line stuff, all of this Joe Alt stuff. I wonder if there is a method to this madness, and I wonder if Harbaugh might be targeting the Titans. We'll do that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. TD at the top of next hour, as always. Hey, tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as Vandy Baseball takes on Missouri with pregame at 5:45. First pitch is at 6. Vandy Baseball is brought to you by Smoky Mountain Tops, your countertop experts. Visit SmokyMountainTops.com.
then he says this stuff about the offensive line. And I'm like, man, it seems like he really needs offensive linemen. All makes sense there. Seems like that's who he could take at 5, but he's very overt in his answers. So is this Jim also being like, hey, I know you guys are 7. I know maybe you want to tackle. Maybe you should come up to 5 and get the offensive tackle that you want, or if Marvin Harrison Jr. slides to 5, hey, do you guys want Marvin Harrison Jr. come to 5? Like there's a feeling, I think, amongst a number of teams that Harbaugh is playing the game right now, that he knows what he's doing and that he's sending signals out to all these different teams that at 5, he's going to be open for business. And literally everybody you want who's not a quarterback is going to be sitting there waiting for you. All you have to do is call them.
There you go. That was Charles Robinson today saying, look, it sounds like Harbaugh's playing the game. When Harbaugh talks about how the offensive line's the most important group on a team, he's sending out the signal to everybody that he's going to build it in the trenches. But could that be a signal to the Titans at 7 saying, if you want Joe Alt, come down and take him? Could that be what it is? And let me say this. I think that's exactly what's going on here. I think this is what I think is happening. I believe Jim Harbaugh is hoping for one of 2 things to happen with that 5th pick. The first is that it goes quarterback, 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 and then he takes Marvin Harrison Jr. with the 5th overall pick. And he looks at Justin Herbert, who has no receivers right now because Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston do not count. I mean, I'm talking about real receivers, i.e. good players. And they don't have any of them. And so, I mean, it makes no sense to have a franchise quarterback in the NFL, which Herbert is, and for you to give him no weapons. And so if you didn't know you were taking a receiver for Herbert, then you probably wouldn't have gotten rid of Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is one thing. That guy was always hurt. He caught 19 passes last year and made $20 million. I mean, you can't have that. But as far as Keenan Allen's concerned, I mean, if you're going to get rid of Keenan Allen for a 4th-round pick, you better have a damn good reason for it. And in this case, I think the reason is he's going to take a receiver, and he wants, because he knows he's going to get either Neighbors or Marvin Harrison, and I think he's hoping like hell it's going to be Marvin Harrison. So, knowing that Arizona wants out at 4, knowing that JJ is the hot item there, probably thinking Harrison's the best, let me tell everybody I'm going to draft a tackle so nobody feels the need to trade with Arizona to get to 4 to take Marvin before I can take him at 5. I think the other thing he's looking for is a trade with the Titans. I don't think that he's worried about the Giants taking Joe Alt. I don't think that he looks at Atlanta at 8 as a team that would trade for Joe Alt. And then once we start getting towards 9 and 10 and everything else, I think that he's probably trying to make sure that the Titans know that that 5th pick is either open for business or they're going to take Joe Alt. So if you want Joe Alt, you've got to trade with me. Again, if you're Harbaugh and you're doing the math on this and 4 quarterbacks go and you get to 7, you still, knowing the Titans are going to take the left tackle, you're still going to walk away with either Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors. That's probably the math Harbaugh's done. Harbaugh is probably trying to get the Titans. Every time Harbaugh says something or every time somebody comes out and says, I'm hearing the Chargers are going to go Alt, doesn't it kind of seem like there's a message about, hey, if you want to get Alt, you better get him before the Chargers do. And there's one team in the top 10 that it is constantly just circled and said, that team's a perfect fit for Joe Alt. By the way, Ian, where was the first time? Because there's been a lot of smoke about Harbaugh and the 5th overall pick drafting Joe Alt. Where was the first place you personally heard the Chargers' supposed reported interest in Joe Alt?
I think there was some Super Bowl buzz around it.
From who?
Was it you?
It was me. Remember, I came back from the Super Bowl, and I said, word on the street. Remember, we had Field Yates on at the Super Bowl, and Field told me that he was going to put his mock draft out the following Wednesday, and he made it clear to me that Joe Alt to the Titans at 7 was going to be on there. And I told you guys on Tuesday after the Super Bowl that I had heard to not rule out Harbaugh and Joe Alt at 5. That I had heard it from a league source. Do not rule out Jim Harbaugh. That Harbaugh is going to want to build this thing in the trenches and that they can draft Alt and move Rashawn Slater to right tackle. That's what I was told. Field made it very clear to me that in his mock draft, he was going to have Joe Alt to the Titans at 7. And then 2 days later, puts out his mock draft, and he's got Alt to the Chargers. And then a lot of people started saying Alt to the Chargers. Well, I can tell you this right now. I did not hear Harbaugh and Alt. I didn't hear that from Harbaugh. I didn't hear that from the Chargers. You know me. I don't have any sources with the Chargers. But do you think it's an accident that it got to me? That at the Super Bowl, it got to me of, hey, watch out for the Chargers. Because you know who listens to this show? The Titans listen to this show. And so when I'm saying, hey, I'm hearing Chargers, and then everybody else starts, oh, we're hearing Chargers. Again, I think that's the Chargers. I think the Chargers have looked at the Titans the entire time. And they have said, this is the perfect team for us to trade for. The draft trade chart says that a move from 7 to 5 is worth a mid-third round pick. So even if it's just the trade chart we're going by, and the Titans don't have a third-round pick in this year or next year's draft, so it would complicate matters. But just going off of the trade chart, doesn't it make a lot of sense for the Chargers to do this? If, let's say, instead of a third, the Chargers are able to get a fourth and a fourth next year in order to make the move to go back. I mean, you're still getting another player, and Jim Harbaugh knows he's still getting Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors. So I think all the Harbaugh smoke about taking a tackle, I think that is twofold. I think, number one, the first spot he wants to trade to is 7, and number two, and I think that this is incredibly likely, I think not only does he want to trade to 7, and he can dangle Joe Alt as the piece in order to do that, but also he could trade out of that again. He could trade to 7 and pick up a fourth in this year's draft and a fourth in next year's draft, and then he could trade from 7 to 11 with Minnesota or with Denver or with somebody like that, and maybe pick up a first in next year's draft or a second in this year's draft to make that move, and then draft J.C. Latham or draft Tyrese Fuaga. Now that's their right tackle, and then they got another first rounder, and they'll get their receiver, and then they'll get another. You know what? Like, I think that that's what Harbaugh's trying to do, and I think the number one team he's circling right now, saying, "Hey, let's try to jump." The number one thing we want is Marvin Harrison. If we don't get Marvin Harrison, let's circle Tennessee. And let's do whatever it takes to get Tennessee to think that we're going to take their tackle so that they have to move up. It reminds me of a story Floyd told me like the first week on the job, and it's not the right tackle story, but it is this story. Apparently, before the 95 draft, the Titans picked 3rd, and everybody knew they were going to take Steve McNair out of Alcorn State. Everybody also knew that the Bengals were going to take Kajana Carter out of Penn State, and that the Jags were going to take the left tackle, Tony Baselli. And so before the draft, Tom Coughlin calls Floyd, and he says, I'm going to take Steve McNair. And they could. I mean, they were an expansion franchise. They didn't have a quarterback. And he said, I'm going to take Steve McNair if you don't give me a 3rd-round pick. And Floyd said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to trade a 3rd-round pick. If you take McNair, I'm taking Baselli. So I'll take the player you want. If you want to do this despite me, I'll take the player that you want. Problem was that the Oilers had a left tackle, and not only did the Oilers have a left tackle, but they also needed a quarterback. Bud Adams told Floyd to make the deal, and Floyd didn't make the deal. And he told me that on draft night when they turned that card in, and it was Tony Baselli, that he let out a giant sigh of relief because he knew that if Tom Coughlin was not bluffing and took Steve McNair at number 2 after the owner had told him to make the trade in order to ensure that they get the quarterback, he knew he would have been fired. But he knew that Tom Coughlin wasn't telling the truth. And when Harbaugh tells everybody, or it gets out that Harbaugh is interested in making that move, I mean, the more I hear it, the more I think he's trying to circle the Titans. He's trying to get to 7, where he can still get either Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison if 4 quarterbacks go. And if 4 quarterbacks don't go and he gets to 7, now he's in prime range to trade again with Minnesota at 11, who has 2 first-round picks. And all of a sudden, Harbaugh can walk out with that 5th overall pick and turn it into the 11th pick and 3 other picks in this draft. So I don't buy that they're interested in Joe Alt, but I buy that there's something they're trying to cook up. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Speaking of lying around draft time, I think the Titans might be doing some lying of their own. We'll get into that, and then we're right to your phone. Stillman and Company right here on 102.5-1063 The Game. Here on our program, be sure to tune in to 102.5-1063 The Game for our coverage of the NCAA tournament, brought to you by Toyota. Ready, set, go. Get your Toyota today at Toyota.com.
lot of people have Latham as the highest graded offensive lineman in this draft. And then a lot of others have Joe Alt. And so those guys are kind of back and forth depending on what you think. But when I look at Latham, the thing that worries me about his floor is that his footwork leads to his lunging, and his footwork leads him to a lot of penalties. So he'll false start because he doesn't trust his footwork against a speed rusher, and he'll hold because his feet don't get him in the right position to be in front of him so he can punch. People think of holding as, okay, you reach out and grab. But holding is more often a problem with your footwork than it is your hands. Because if you are able to be squared up against that guy, you're not going to grab him, you're going to punch him. But if he's getting around the corner on you, you're going to reach out and grab him. And Latham has enough of those plays that it makes you kind of wonder, okay, does he have the actual speed, foot speed, to be able to get out there against the faster rushers? Now, he is very fluid for a man his size. He's like 340 pounds. But he may be best suited to play guard. He may go out at right tackle and excel.
Trevor on our show earlier this week. By the way, I do not like hearing that. You know, Latham might actually be more of a guard than he is a tackle. No. So the Titans are apparently high on J.C. Latham to where I think the report is that it's close between Latham and Alt. I think the Titans are using J.C. Latham. I think the Titans are going to tell everybody for the next month how much they like J.C. Latham, how much they like Fuaga, how much they like Fatanu, whomever, these other offensive line, Mims maybe. And I think the Titans are doing that because they're going to take Joe Alt at 7. And if for some reason Joe Alt's not there, they're going to take Olu Fashanu. I think they're taking one of the left tackles unless Marvin Harrison is there, which is not likely. So as we talk about, well, I think the Chargers are lying about this, and I think the Giants are lying about that. Here's what I think the Bears have already done their lying. That's over. They lied when they said, we're considering whether or not we should return Justin Fields as quarterback. They were doing that to see if they could get something in return for Fields, and the answer to that was no. Washington isn't lying about anything. They're just going to take one of these quarterbacks. When it starts to come out which quarterback they might take, then there may be some lying. If for no other reason, because let's say they really, really like Drake May, they would float out that they really, really like Jaden Daniels in hopes that maybe New England would trade to 2 in order to get Daniels, and then they could get May plus a pick. But Washington pretty much can just, we're taking a quarterback, and there we go. New England is lying, saying that they might not take a quarterback. They're going to take a quarterback. Arizona is telling the truth that they're open to moving the pick. And then the Chargers are lying about everything, and I think the Giants are lying about taking J.J. McCarthy. I think you're lying about having interest in J.C. Latham. Now, maybe the Titans could move back and take J.C. Latham, but I don't think that they look. The Titans are taking a left tackle. Because as much as we talk about the right tackle story, left tackle for a right-handed quarterback is still more important than right tackle. So the Titans are taking one of the left tackles. They're either taking Alt or they're taking Fashanu. And so I think everything else is just, again, kind of a lie. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Texter says, the Chargers wanting Joe Alt just isn't believable. Why would they draft a rookie left tackle, move their Pro Bowl left tackle to right tackle? If they wanted a tackle, why wouldn't they take J.C. Latham or Fuaga and make that more likely as a right tackle? If I'm the Titans, I call their bluff. I agree. I think that what Harbaugh would really like to do if he can't get Marvin Harrison is I think he'd like to move out with Minnesota because Minnesota has 2 first-round picks. So I don't know what the draft chart says, but let's say that J.J. McCarthy is still there at 5, which is very likely. And Minnesota wants him. And again, reading the actions over what people are saying, Minnesota acquiring a second first-round pick is for a quarterback. So let's say he moves out of 5 to 11, he can still get Latham or Fuaga, and he gets another first-round pick in which he can draft a wide receiver like Brian Thomas or A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy or Ladd McConkey or one of these guys that will still be around in the later parts of the first round. I agree. I think it's a total bluff. I don't think the Chargers are going to draft Joe Alt. If the Chargers draft Joe Alt, I will be shocked. In fact, Ian, I'm thinking about guaranteeing it. I'm not going to guarantee it today.
A little early, yeah.
But I am thinking about guaranteeing it.
Okay.
Texter says, Will on Music Row says, we always talk about who's ahead of the Titans, who's behind the Titans, and what we always talk about who's ahead of us, who's behind us, and what are they taking if the Titans trade back. So Chicago at 9 is a very fascinating candidate here because they have a left tackle, but he's not a good left tackle. I think his name is Braxton Jones. I'm not totally sure. His PFF grades say he's not very good. And I just did some reading, like, what do the Chicago Bears blogger websites say? And they say, we could stand to see an upgrade over there at left tackle. So the Chicago Bears worry me at 9 because at 8, the Atlanta Falcons are not going to take a left tackle. The Jets are at 10. They signed Tyron Smith. But again, Tyron Smith is a Band-Aid. And I think that if a Joe Alt was available at 10, the Jets absolutely could be in play for that. It would be odd to draft Alt and not play him, knowing that Aaron Rodgers is going to throw a fit, but it wouldn't surprise me. But I could also see the Bears going at wide receiver, going at, maybe Brock Bowers, or even defense. With the Jets, Bowers, I think, is certainly in play. At 11, the Vikings are probably going quarterback. It sounds like Denver is going to go quarterback, and that may be Bo Nix, who Fitz came on the show yesterday, and he talked about how he says the people in the league that he talks to are saying Bo Nix is going to go way higher than the mock drafts say. So, again, that's kind of what you're looking at behind you. One texter says, is Quentin Johnston really that bad? If he's as bad as you say he is, the Chargers are definitely taking a wideout. I mean, I don't think I watched a single full Charger game this year, but I'm going to guess. I mean, I remember seeing things during the year about how they totally blew the Quentin Johnston pick. And I had somebody in the league tell me, who was in the league at the time during the draft, tell me that the analytics on contested catches for Quentin Johnston was apparently terrible. Out of TCU, that those analytics were horrible. And because the analytics were so bad that it was I'm not sure I would draft him. I'm just looking at his PFF grades right now. He was a 58.9 overall. It does take young receivers some time in the NFL. Not everybody's Justin Jefferson or Randy Moss. But, again, I think all the metrics kind of say that he was pretty terrible. And so I'm just looking at kind of, what the PFF grades are. And, again, they're not very good. And he dropped the football. Only 2 drops. That's not that bad. Okay, here you go. Contested catch targets, 22. Contested catches, 7. That's not very good. Yards per reception, again, not great. And, again, it sounds like he's a bust, just from what everybody has said. Now, maybe Harbaugh thinks he can change him, or maybe Harbaugh doesn't want to pass, but it sounds like he's kind of a bust. One texter says, if I'm the Titans, this is Devin from Dover, he goes, if I'm the Titans, I'm taking the bait. I'm taking the bait from the Chargers, and if Marvin Harrison Jr. is there at 5, I'm taking him, and if not, I'm going to take Joe Alt. That way, if I move to 5, I'm guaranteed to be able to get one of those 2 players. It's a risk. I mean, I think that the price to move from 1 to 5, and it would have to happen on draft night, because if Harbaugh wants somebody and that person is there, he's going to want to have the opportunity to draft them. So you make the trade ahead of time, and then you just decide, okay, if we make the trade, we make the trade. If you are the Titans, it would be your 4th-round pick this year and your 4th-round pick next year, probably, to move from 7 to 5. Because the chart says it would be your 3rd-round pick. They would want 38, which you're not going to do. Now, you could give them 38, but they'd have to give you a 3rd-round pick and a 4th. You could make it work somehow. But I don't know if I do that. Only because this team this team needs draft picks. This team's not in a position to where they can do what they did in 2018 when they drafted 4 players. Like, this team has got to, and that was a mistake, by the way, of what they did in 2018. This team needs actual bodies. And there's no way that you can do that by trading up more picks to move up to 5. Plus, do you really think they're going to take Joe Alt? 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 here on our program. So, Barry Trotz and I think, have had a pretty solid on-air relationship over the first year that he's been doing this as general manager. But there is something that I said that made Barry Trotz very uncomfortable. And yet, I actually feel very confident that I'm right about what I said. We'll get to that next. Plus, maybe our code word for those tickets for later in today's show. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company right here on 102.5-1063 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there that you can score big this spring with Lee Company and the Nashville Predators in their 10K Power Play giveaway. Enter for a chance to win a Kohler home generator or $10,000 towards Lee Company Home Services. That's right, a Kohler home generator or $10,000 towards Lee Company Home Services. Go online to leecompany.com/giveaway to enter. Again, that's leecompany.com/giveaway to enter in the $10,000 Power Play giveaway. Contest entries are accepted until Saturday, April 20th. I don't keep up with every other team. I hate when it comes to like league awards and asking what I think about them because I don't keep up with other teams like I keep with the Bears. I think there's a pretty good chance in your first year you might win the General Manager of the Year award.
Oh, I don't know about that. I hope not.
You hope not.
I would rather see Roman Yossi win the MVP or the Norris Trophy because he's the guy that gets it done night in and night out. There's too many general managers that have done some wonderful things with their team. So I'm just that will be something that I'd rather have the team award or someone else win it than me.
I'm just saying, I don't think any of these other teams thought, maybe Philadelphia, I'm not sure any of these other teams thought they were rebuilding and all of a sudden have a 99.6% chance of making the playoffs and are dispatching playoff teams left and right the way you guys have.
Well, maybe I look at it.
He wants me to stop talking. I can see it right here.
Yes, I would like that. I look at it. I sort of joke around. I said I was trying to, start a rebuild here or retool or whatever, and I haven't done a very good job of that. And but at the same time, the success of our team it all goes to the players. It goes to Bruno. It goes to the fans who come in and get us through the third period.
Okay, there you go. That was Barry Trotz on the program, and he says he doesn't want to win the General Manager of the Year award. I believe it's called the Jim Gregory Award, the General Manager of the Year award in the NHL. And I'm just going to say this. I cannot tell you if he should or he shouldn't because I don't know exactly what moves, say, Vancouver made in the offseason or Philadelphia made in the offseason or any of these teams made during the season. I'll just say this. It's hard for me to envision that anybody could have done a better job in the last calendar year than Barry Trotz has done. And I am talking about almost every decision that has been made, because a lot of these decisions were controversial. These are the kind of moves that other general managers around the league look at and say, oof, it takes some stones to do that. I mean, remember, Barry got the job and immediately put John Hines on notice and kind of on the hot seat with this, hey, I think he did a good job at the end of the year, but I need to evaluate and decide what I'm going to do. And then he waited 6 weeks to find Andrew Burnett. And, I mean, I think everybody was saying, my God, how that is so wrong to treat John Hines like that. And Barry Trotz told you the whole time, no, I think John Hines is a good coach. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can get a better coach. And if I can't get a better coach, then John Hines is going to coach him. And if I can get a better coach, then I'm going to hire the better coach. And that's what he did. Culture was a big deal to him. Goodbye, Johansson. Goodbye, Duchesne. There's a lot of people that would not have bought out that Duchesne contract because that's going to be on the books now for a while. And if it doesn't work, say Duchesne goes to Dallas and scores 25 goals and you're no good, people are going to be mad at you. And so I read up today on the Jim Gregory Award, and it is, it's basically the second week or after the second round of the playoffs, they do the voting. Because I was shocked that Don Sweeney didn't win the award last year after the Bruins set an NHL record for most wins in a season. And then I was reminded that actually it takes place after the second round of the playoffs, so the Bruins have been eliminated in the first round. So if the Predators make it to the Western Conference Final, Trotz probably wins the award. If they don't, it's probably up in the air. But again, I can't imagine somebody doing a better job than Barry Trotz has done in the first year as general manager. This team is loaded with cap space, loaded with draft picks, loaded with prospects, and they weren't even supposed to be good, and they haven't lost in regulation in the last 18 games, which is 22% of an 82-game season. This team's a cup contender, well ahead of schedule. And even some of the small moves he made, like Jason Zucker for a 6th-round pick. I mean, Jason Zucker is a top 6 scoring winger who can play on the power play, who's got big size, playoff experience, and all he cost was a 6th-round pick. A lot of these rentals go for 1st and 2nd round picks, and you see a guy get traded like Granlund last year for a 2nd round pick, and it's like, what? a second rounder. You traded a sixth rounder, and this guy is better than Granlund. So I know Barry Trotz doesn't want to win the award. He wants Yossi to win the Norris. I'm sure he wants Andrew Burnett to win the Jack Adams. I'm sure he wants all of these things. But I'll say right now, I don't know how you could do a better job. I don't know how you could do a better job than Barry Trotz has. 615-737-1025. So that's going to be our code word. I say code word. I guess I'm going to go code words, which is our code word is the Jim Gregory Award. Why? Because the Jim Gregory Award is the General Manager of the Year Award, and I think Barry Trotz deserves it. TD will join us next. Be listening later in the show. I will give you a cue to call. I will tell you when to call in with that code word for Ian, and you'll get a pair of tickets to the Preds and the Bruins if you get it right. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. TD joins us next. The L'Jarius Sneed trade is done. So where do the Titans go from here with rebuilding their roster? We'll do that next here for the TD Power Hour. Let's talk about FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. And today is opening day. Grand slams, no-hitters, and double plays are back. And there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and my official sportsbook app. Because right now, new customers can start the MLB season with $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 you can use on money lines, totals, strikeouts, homers, you name it, you can bet it. And you can combine your bets in a same-game parlay for a chance at an even bigger payout. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So just visit FanDuel.com/JGM to join today and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. 21 and over in present Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live in the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. It is time, 3 o'clock on a Thursday, which means it's the TD Power Hour, presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. TD is with us. Hello, TD.
What's going on?
Man, I will tell you, it feels like we're kind of starting to move into draft season. We are less than a month away from the draft, but the Titans making the big splash at the end of free agency with the trade of L'Jarius Sneed on Friday. Now, it is not official yet, which I'm a little surprised by, but I've been told not to read anything into that,
Exactly.
that the deal is donezo, and L'Jarius Sneed, I shouldn't say donezo, but that he's going to be a Titan, that there is no hang up here or there. Your reaction to the L'Jarius Sneed trade and what it said to you about where the Titans view themselves in terms of competing this upcoming season?
Well, I tell you what, it really gave my lady a glimpse into how my world works, right? Because we're there at a comedy show at Bridgestone, right, seeing Mike Epps and the rest of his crew, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh. And I had to start writing, and I had to, pull out my phone and do some work. So it gave her a glimpse. So it was a surprise. I didn't think the deal was going to happen that quickly. I knew all along, as I've said, they were interested, but it had to be at their price. And they did a master job of just waiting it out. And, I likened it to when you go buy a car, right? You have a price that you're going to buy the car at.
Sure. If
they don't come to that price, you get up and you show them that you're going to walk out. And I think that's basically what the Titans had done, right? And they said, wait, come on back. And they figured it out, and now you have the deal. So I think when you look at the deal, obviously, it's a third-round pick next year. That's equivalent to a fourth-round pick this year. So, it's not like it was a total fleece. It was a matter of one team catching another team in a situation where they had a player that they wanted to offload, and that player just happens to match what the other team wants to do perfectly. And I think that's what you're looking at. So acquiring L'Jarius Sneed, I think what that does is show that this team, they're reloading, not rebuilding. I think that's the best way to put it. They're reloading on the run. They still want to compete. They have all intentions of going out there and winning football games. But now is a situation where those games are more winnable. And what you're seeing is a team that is essentially building from the back forward, right? You go out and sign Chidobe Awuzie, right? You trade for L'Jarius Sneed. Obviously, the safety situation, there were guys that they were interested in. We know that still has to be fixed. And then the next level of the defense, Kenneth Murray, who I know there's a lot of concern about the pass rush, but I believe Kenneth Murray could really help that situation. I believe that the guys in the backfield, their sticky coverage, L'Jarius Sneed and his aggressive mindset as far as getting in the receiver's face and jamming them, that's going to give those guys up front a little bit of extra time to get home. And, oh, by the way, Sneed is an outstanding blitzer. So they're going to be able to send him on blitzes at times too. I think you couldn't – I'll put it this way. I don't think that there's a cornerback in the league that matches better what what Denard Wilson wants to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that just because they made the trade. I'm not saying that because of that. I'm saying that because looking at Sneed and what he brings, the versatility. Guess what Denard Wilson said that he prefers in DBs? Versatility. Line up on left, right, as well as the nickel, because it's a wide-open league. It's a matchup league. Wide receivers that are the top receivers are getting moved around. Check. He wants to be aggressive overall. We know Sneed is that. And then on top of that, he wants to blitz, but not blitz recklessly and have coverage behind it. Sneed is one of the best cover guys in the league. He wants to blitz, as I said. At times you could send him on the blitz. Everything that you look at checks out, and he's 27. The knee obviously is something they're going to have to manage, and I think that's really the only close to hiccup situation that they have. This move is a good move. And, oh, by the way, Vin Marino, Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, Anthony Robinson, and the crew, they were able to get this deal set up to where that $22 million on all platforms, if you ask me.
So when I saw a $20 million signing bonus, I thought Amy also stepped up to the plate. As far as, because, you hear the stuff that lingers in the background about the Titans being cheap. And, I challenged the Titans this year when I was, looking at the payroll, and I'm like, I expect them to spend a bunch of money, and I give credit to the owner. But on the Sneed front, I do wonder, what have you heard about the knees? Because the Titans, obviously, it's out into the discourse that he's got, the knee swelling and missed training camp practices and things like that. Mm-hmm. But obviously the Titans still are willing to take on that risk. So when you, after they made the deal, when you just kind of did your reporting, what have you heard about the Titans' level of concern on the knee and what kind of they view the reality of that situation to be?
Well, they vetted it out, and they feel that it's a situation that could be managed. And I think, from the Kansas City side, sources, on that side of things, I was told, I had one person tell me that it really limited him in training camp, And so you have that. But I had someone else tell me, hey, he didn't miss any games. He missed one. He was out of one game. So I think it's just one of those things where you have to be cautious of it. I don't know about it being a chronic injury. The good thing is these medical teams, they could exchange information, and based on what the Titans got, the physical was passed, and they feel that it's not going to be a huge hindrance going forward.
What do you make of what it means for the big picture of the Titans? And I'm not talking about are they going for it versus are they rebuilding? Because I think everybody in the NFL is trying to win, and everybody on some level is kind of on the clock a little bit. But what this means for Will Levis to have a L'Jarius Sneed and a Chidobe Awuzie on his team, because I'm convinced that the defense is very much a part of Will Levis's development, because it's much easier to ask the young quarterback to go score 20 points than it is to ask the young quarterback to score 30 points.
Turnovers on downs. Those are interceptions. This team had 3 interceptions last year, Jared. Sneed had 2. So
wait a minute, hold on. They had 3 interceptions.
Excuse me, not 3 interceptions. Pardon me. This team had their average. Let me get it correct. Their average per interceptions was I think it was 0.0. I got to look it up again. I caught myself out of context there. That's my error. He had 2 interceptions.
Sure.
This team averaged. Where is it? They averaged 0.6 interceptions per game. So, long story short, this team needs to be able to turn the football over in the passing game, and that's something that he brings. And then you look at the touchdown to interception ratio. That's another area where he was one of the best, and they were one of the worst. So they do have to improve in those areas.
Do you feel like the Titans still have work to do on the pass rush with Autry being
Absolutely.
out? You brought up Murray, and they brought in Sebastian Joseph, who I think is going to be – I think what we're going to see is that Sebastian Joseph is probably going to play more of what Simmons has done in the past, and Simmons is probably going to do more of what Autry did, where he moved – Autry kind of played the Chris Jones role, where he moved all around the defensive line no matter what. I think they're going to want Simmons to do more of that this year, but even with good corners, I think we all know that the pass rush is still important. So do you think there's still more to do there to fill that Autry void?
Yeah, and Simmons moved around a lot last year too. Mm-hmm. So I believe 2 or 3 of his sacks came from not the interior side of things. So you do have that. But, yeah, I mean, look, they're going to have to add to the pass rush. You have double-digit sacks that went out the window with Danico Autry. Rashad Weaver is a guy that they're still looking. I don't know what he's going to provide. Caleb Murphy, a lot of people really liked him during camp, me one of them. But these are guys that Brian Callahan didn't mention when he was asked about the pass rush, right? So Harold Landry, Arden Key, we know Landry and what he brings to the table. Arden Key can step up more in the sack side of things. I will say this, he gets pressures, and he is a playmaker for them. But they do need to add a pass rush, and that's why you see people putting Dallas Turner in that conversation at 7. Now, that's not a direction I would go, but you see him getting in that conversation. I think at some point they're going to have to look to get somebody. And you look, let's say they trade down to 11 and 23. At 23, Chop Robinson is a very attractive pass rusher. You know what I mean? So that's an option there. They have to add somebody. But as I said, they're going to look to get some sack production out of Kenneth Murray. And they're really trusting that secondary is going to hold it down enough to give them a little bit more time up front to get to the football.
Do you think that we'll see them look out and well, you know what? Let's pick this up on the other side because the draft, the Titans have said at the owners' meetings that they're kind of right now turning their attention to the draft. But do we think that there could still be some more free agent moves to be made? We'll do that with TD kind of going over some of these spots that the Titans have openings. We'll do that next. The TD Power Hour is presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Teron Davenport, Jared Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
So what do you make of just all the roster turnover and everything you've been able to add?
It's been a good offseason so far. There's a lot left to do, but I think it's been a good start. I thought the free agency period's gone well. We've added some good players, and with a whole draft to go, I feel pretty good about where we have a chance to be come training camp.
Brian Callahan talking about the roster, and they have filled a lot of holes. Because, TD, when we started this, I mean, it almost took me like 15 seconds to get out all the holes the Titans had as they entered training camp or entered the offseason. And now, sit there and say, all right, it looks like they're probably going to go left tackle in the draft, but maybe right tackle, maybe right guard.
Do you still have to tell the right tackle story?
I had to tell it yesterday.
Don't do it, please.
I had
Don't.
to tell TD, I'm getting scared to death that Jalen Duncan or Nicholas Petit-Frere are going to be playing right tackle for the Titans this year.
We'll see.
So I do wonder this, because we were talking about the different spots. Safety seems to me like a spot that there are still free agents to be had, and the Titans still need a safety. And you said Denard Wilson, that he wants to build this with a secondary he can rely on. Do we think the Titans, even before the draft, are still kind of keeping in touch with these safeties, looking to kind of solidify that last spot? Because I'm not a huge Elijah Molden fan, but I think if Molden is like the seventh guy or the sixth guy in that group, like it's still a solid group.
Yeah, no. And just for clarity, I'm not saying that that's what Denard Wilson wants to do.
Sure.
But it's the direction that what's available to them is taking them, right? Sure. And I think it's only right as a smart coach, you're going to work with what you have, right? So you look right now, the back end is much stronger than the front end. So that's that, especially with a healthy Hooker. But as you mentioned, with Molden in the mix, that gives you an interchangeable piece, whereas you could use he and Hooker in different situations. I would say they are in contact with some of these safeties. For the life of me, and I haven't been able to get any answers, but I don't know why Julian Blackmon is someone that they haven't reached out to. I think when you look at Blackmon, he's a younger player. He was obviously out all of 2022, but he came back and had a solid season last year. And you look at those Colts games, a lot of times when, Derrick Henry was getting tackled, he was right there in the mix starting that. So you do have him. Obviously, Justin Simmons is out there. But I tell you what, and yes, they only have so many draft picks, but you look at a guy, and I actually posted a video of him a couple days ago, Marcus Banks out of Mississippi State. He's 6'1", 6 feet 190. He was in the 4.4 range in the 40. I think it was like 4.47. You go back and watch the LSU game, which I posted clips from. He literally lined up on the left corners, right corner, nickel, and deep. And if you watch that game, you'll see in the second half, Malik Neighbors didn't really get off like that. Now, a good part of that was because they ran the ball a lot, but the few times that they targeted him, he was limited. Guess who was over top of him in the slot?
Marcus Banks.
Yes. So that's a guy that he's going to be a day 3 / undrafted free agent. That's someone you could bring in. And then with this shift to special teams and how important kick coverage is now, yeah, he's a good player for that. You also look at a guy like Wake Forest, Malik Mustafa, and he's someone, I talked to him at the Senior Bowl. I liked his game just overall because I love the reckless abandonment that he plays with. And we talked about Bob Sanders, and he knew who Bob Sanders was. So I was just impressed with that. But he acknowledged that that's somebody that he strives to play like, with that same type of physicality mixed in with range in the secondary as well. So those are a couple guys if they have to go draft, and those are guys that I don't think will take more than a day 3 pick. Now, if you're looking at 38 or if you're able to generate a second-round pick, Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota is someone I would absolutely look at, right? We talked about the interceptions, and like I said, it was 6. I had my numbers mixed up. There were 3 players who had as many of, if not more, than the Titans last year, and that's where the 3 came from for me. My stats were jumbled. But anyhow, this is a guy, Tyler Nubin, that is a ball hawk. He's someone that will help increase those totals, and you put he and Hooker in there, and you have Molden when they want to go big nickel, and I think you have something really good going.
TD, what do you make of the green dot inside linebacker position? Because I do think that Trevor, when he said that, the idea of experience in that just lining up the defense and making sure that the front and the back are aligned, I think that is a big deal.
Yeah.
And yet the Titans only, that we know of, brought in Jerome Baker and didn't come to an agreement with him. And there's not a lot of those guys left on the market. And I do think that it seems like Kenneth Murray's going to be more of a jack-of-all-trades type linebacker than a three-down, middle-of-the-team, lining the defense up linebacker.
Yeah, so Kenneth Murray is someone that I don't think you put any thoughts into it. You just say, hey, look, man, go out there. And what I said last week, mess stuff up. Yeah. That's what you do. Just like we talked about Darius Robinson, you just go out there and bust stuff up. And that's what you want him to do. You don't want him to think or anything like that. So get the green dot helmet far away from him. But here's the problem. Jack Gibbons, I think, is probably their has the best football sense or awareness out of all of them. But you do have limitations athletically with him. So
if you put Kenneth Murray's athleticism into Jack Gibbons, we'd have no problem.
Yeah, you're going to have a Hall of Famer. And that's not to say Kenneth Murray is dumb, because that's not the case at all.
Sure.
But it's just he's one of those guys where you don't want him thinking. Why? Because you want him to play fast and physical. Remember what he said at this press conference? That's how you want him to play. And I think he has to be able to play freely. So I say all that to say, when you look at what Trevor said about experience, he's 100% right. And on talking with TD on the Run TMC section with Chris Sanders, Chris made an excellent point, and a lot of us aren't even thinking about it. But as a rookie, you're trying to figure out and make sure you know where you're supposed to be aligned, right? So how the heck are you going to have a rookie think about that and then tell Jeffrey Simmons, hey, come up and tap him on the butt and say, hey, scoot over to this, you know what I mean? Or relay a signal to, that's a lot. That's a lot. And then on top of that, even if he is able to do that, he's still going to be processing stuff. So that's going to take away from the speed by which he could play. So that's not a situation that you want. I say all that to say I think Jack Gibbons is Jack Gibbons and Kenneth Murray. You'll see a rotation of Otis Reese in there too. But remember, when Otis Reese was in there, Azeez Al-Shire was there calling the defense, right? So I don't think Otis Reese is a person that you want out there just yet either, because he's a second-year player, but his first year in this scheme.
Mm-hmm. What about at the right tackle spot? Are you buying the idea that this really could be a competition between Jalen Duncan and Nicholas Petit-Frere, or do you think the Titans are going to have a trick up their sleeve somewhere around here?
I think it could be a competition between those two. The trick up their sleeve, I don't know. I mean, you only have so many draft picks, right? Roger Rosengarten, I think, is someone to look at. He's a possibility at right tackle, but does he come in as a fourth-round pick and give you better hope than MPF, or as you call him, PT, right? That was a third-round pick a couple years ago, or Jaden Duncan, who I wonder how Duncan would do on the right side. I'm just going to say it because of this. Typically on the right side, that's your bigger, stronger guy. He's a bigger guy, but he has to get stronger. That's the big problem with him. So I don't know, Jared. They're going to have to find a way to get that position solidified, or else I think you'll be telling that story all year.
Oh, I'll be yelling and screaming. I mean, right tackle, I think we all know that, at least I say no. One of the tackle spots I think is getting solved in the first round, whether it's at 7 or wherever it may be, that one of those two tackles. I worry. I think Petit-Frere has the talent because he was one of the top recruits in the country, and he ended up at Ohio State. He's got the tangibles to be a starting left tackle or right tackle and a good one in the NFL. I just don't know if he's got that, inside of him, whether it's up here or in here in order to make that transition. But at the same time, I personally think he did have subpar coaching his first 2 years.
Yeah, and so that is something where you kind of hang your hat on Bill Callahan. And I'll say this, Bill Callahan coaches hard, from what I've heard. I heard that he rode DeJuan Jones. You remember DeJuan Jones, that giant that I was saying, hey, look, man, he'll be awfully nice at right tackle. You remember him, right, out of Ohio State? The one I said I started looking at his feet.
Didn't he check in at like 390-something pounds at the combine? Or like
he was like
375,
380, something like that.
And refused to weigh in at the Ohio State Pro Day.
Hey, listen, I gave it to you once. I ain't getting on there again. I don't blame him. But, yeah, I mean, they said that when it was time for him they were trying to get him ready to start, they said Bill Callahan was riding him. So, and you see what it brought out of him. So, we'll see. Maybe he could bring the same out of Nicholas Petit-Frere. That's the gift and the curse from having an outstanding coach like that, right? You look at a guy like Petit-Frere and you say, hey, we got this coach. I think he could bring the best out of him. Let's see what could happen. And it could be a gift or it could be a curse and, it not work.
Do you think right guard will be a battle between Radunz or Brunskill, or do you think it's going to be Brunskill with them developing Radunz to back up Brunskill?
Well, don't forget Sadiq Charles. He's going to be in that mix too.
And Sadiq Charles.
Obviously a $2.5 million deal, but I think he's going to be in the mix too, and that'll be good for him, right, to be able to play next to his college teammate Lloyd Cushenberry. So, I think it's going to be a competition between those three. We know the left side is pretty much where it is. Charles has played some tackle too, so you do have that.
TD, I have got some of the smoke that is starting to come out around the draft. I want to know what you believe. Not what's being reported, not what teams are saying, but what do you believe is true or not? We're going to do that next. And, of course, we'll hit your phones at the bottom of the hour, as we always do with TD. The TD Power Hour is presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook, Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Despite having a daughter who's a Wolverine, I do love Marvin Harrison. But what I love even more is my nephew, Justin Herbert, being healthy. And that's what job one's going to be for Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. The offensive line, Mel, it's about keeping Justin Herbert healthy. If this is year 2, I completely agree with you.
Okay, there you go. That was Tannenbaum in his mock draft, where he's got Joe Alt going at number 5 to the Chargers. TD is with us for the TD Power Hour presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. TD, I've got a list in front of me of kind of what I call draft smoke for you. And I want to know if you believe that it's actually true or not. We've got the Chad Withrow Bell, Ian, if you could. There you go. So here's the first one for you, TD. Do you think Jim Harbaugh really wants Joe Alt with the 5th pick?
I think he wants an offensive lineman with the 5th pick. I wouldn't be shocked, as I've said before, if they take J.C. Latham. But I think he wants an offensive lineman with the 1st pick.
So you think that he would stay at 5 and pass on, say, Harrison if he's there, or Neighbors, given their receiver situation, still to take an offensive lineman?
I think it would be strong consideration. I do. Because you look at the history of what Harbaugh has done. I mean, just look at where he came from. Michigan ran the football, and this is with a 5-star quarterback.
Sure.
In J.J. McCarthy. You look at when he was in San Francisco, Frank Gore was toting that rock, right? And they had tackles on both sides. Anthony Davis, who was a first-round pick, Joe Staley, who was a first-round pick. Now, neither of those guys were top 10 picks or first-round picks when he was there, but they were first-round picks. And then you look at it in the past, with Stanford, run the football. They always want to protect the quarterback. Like, that's what he wants to do.
See, I wonder if maybe, and again, maybe this is for trade talk reasons. Wouldn't it be better off for Harbaugh, given how deep of a receiver draft this is, for him to move off of 5 in order to be able to pick up, say, Fuaga or Latham, maybe late, like 11 with that Minnesota pick, and then get a receiver in the first round of, where those A.D. Mitchells might be coming off the board?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's definitely an option. Definitely an option. And it just – I don't know what they're going to do. And I don't think that he was saying all that just to say, hey, look, man, you want an offensive lineman, you're going to have to come to me. I don't think he was saying it for that. I think he was just being genuine and speaking his mind. Now, I don't agree that the offensive line is the only position because I feel as though if the receivers don't get open, it doesn't matter how long the O-line protects. I feel as though if the quarterback holds on to the football, he's going to get sacked. Like we saw last year that there were sacks that weren't the O-line's fault, but they got.
Number 2, J.J. McCarthy will go in the top 5. Are you buying that smoke?
Nah, I don't believe that. I don't believe that one. I think he goes top 10. I think he goes top 10. I could see a team moving up to the Falcons spot and getting them, and the Falcons moving back, trusting that, the Jets and the Bears won't take Dallas Turner.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that when Minnesota got that second first-round pick, they were telling people that we're the team to beat for J.J. McCarthy. Because I don't think they're getting into the first 3. And so that second first-round pick, and that might be where Harbaugh – I think that would be perfect for Harbaugh, would be to swap with Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Minnesota gets J.J. at 5, and then Harbaugh can still get Latham or Fuaga at 11 to play right tackle. Because I don't think it makes a lot of sense to draft Dalton and put him at right tackle when he's a left tackle and there's all these right tackles that are in the middle of the first round that a lot of people say are really freaking good.
Yeah, I mean, look, Troy Fowler. There's a bunch of guys. We're not to get into the names. We've said them before. I think the Titans are a good spot for the Vikings to trade up to. Right at 7, I think that's where you could get Christian. I keep thinking of Christian Ponder because I keep thinking of the draft when he went top 10, and I was like, what? So I think that's where you could get J.J. McCarthy.
Okay. Titans will not take a left tackle in the first round of this year's draft. Are you buying some of that smoke?
I don't know where that smoke came from, but I'm not going to buy that because I believe Fashanu and Alt will give him good options at left tackle. So, no, I'm not buying that.
By the way, what's up with Fashanu? You know, we've talked about like all the draft people were saying that Fashanu and Alt were kind of neck and neck, and then they get to the combine and Fashanu has the smaller hands, and now I don't hear his name mentioned at all anymore.
Yeah, I think, that Ohio State tape was rough. He had a lot of lunging. He was caught out of position at times. I don't know what happened with him. I think he's just fallen by the wayside. Now, he's still a really good player, and I just think you're looking at the upside with him and what he brings now, having that upside. I would take a gamble on him. I definitely would take a gamble on him. But I just think you see other players, and that's what happens, right? When you're a good because he's been a good prospect for 2 years, right? And what happens? You start to nitpick things in this game, and you find reasons to kind of talk yourself out of him, and here it is. It's a really good prospect that you passed up on.
Speaking of prospects that have been out there for 2 years, there is some smoke that Marvin Harrison Jr. is slipping, and that some teams view Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr., and that Marvin Harrison Jr., as we've seen in some of these mock drafts, could actually be available with the 7th overall pick. Are you buying that?
I highly doubt he's available at 7. I'm going to say no, I'm not buying it, just to make it happen, because I would love to see Harrison Jr. here, because that would be great for business. But nevertheless, I don't think it happens, though.
I think the Chargers want – that's who I think the Chargers want is Marvin Harrison Jr. because I've heard a lot of people say that they don't like doing the comparing somebody to their dad, but that apparently Marvin Jr. has a lot of the qualities that Marvin Sr. had.
I wouldn't say that.
And then remember, I think Harbaugh was the quarterback for Marvin Sr. his rookie year in Indianapolis.
Yeah, he was. He was.
And so I think that, I think Harbaugh is hoping to hype up J.J. McCarthy so that somebody trades with Arizona at 4 to go quarterback, and then it's quarterback, and then he goes and gets Marvin Harrison Jr. to pair with Justin Herbert for the next 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, that wouldn't be a bad move at all. But at the same time, you have a deep draft, right? So I think really this is what a deep draft for the receivers. I think what this really depends on is how much separation does Jim Harbaugh and the Falcons, or excuse me, the Chargers brass, how much separation do they feel is between Alt, Fashanu, et cetera, and the second-round prospects? Is it more than the separation between Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., and the second-round receiver prospects? That's really going to determine what direction they go, in my opinion.
Okay, I'll ask you this question. You're Jim Harbaugh, because I know you've watched all this tape. So you're the Chargers. What would you rather have? Would you rather have Alt at right tackle and a second-round receiver like Ladd McConkey or Xavier Legette or whatever, or would you rather have Marvin Harrison Jr. and a second-round tackle like Kingsley
Suamataia
out of BYU?
Yeah, listen, look, you take Alt, who's a really good prospect, but you got to flip him to the right side. Not saying he can't do it, but now you have a little conversion. I'll go ahead and take Marvin Harrison Jr., figure it out on the right side, right? You could go for a right tackle at 34 where they are, 35 wherever they are, and get a good player. You could also get, like, I look at Roger Rosengarten in the third round as a guy that, the high third round is a guy that he could come in and start.
You know what's going to happen now, though?
What's that?
I've seen this. I think I've seen this each of the last 3 years where you talk about somebody and you say they're like a third-round pick, and then at pick 28, all of a sudden it's like, with the 28th pick, they select Roger Rosengarten out of Washington, and everyone's like, whoa!
Yeah.
And so
it happens.
I've seen it happen with guys that you've circled too many times over the years.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it just takes one, right? You look at Cleveland Farrell.
Woof!
5th overall, like fourth. No one would have saw that.
Nobody.
So it just takes one team.
Especially that year with Simmons and Dexter Lawrence and Christian
Montez
Wilkins
Sweat
and Sweat. So many good players. Okay, your phones for TD. We'll do them next. 615-737-1025. We're right to them. Hey, White Bison, that's right. They're your local coffee shop with specialty coffee and so much more. I actually went to White Bison this morning. The White Bison over there in the Nations. I love it. Explore their selection of premium coffee blends, refreshing iced drinks, and food featuring fresh-made premium breakfast, lunch, and snack options. And download the app so that you can join the White Bison Rewards program. You can place orders on the go anytime, and you can get rewards to earn free coffee. Stop by White Bison and brighten your day with a sweet cinnamon beehive latte, an iced honey nut macchiato, or the vanilla rooibos tea latte. Find your perfect cup at White Bison, where it's finely crafted for you every day. That's a White Bison and twice daily, fresh all day. Stillman and Company, the TD Power Hour is presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. TD, do you have a thought or do you want to go to the people?
One thought. How about those Preds? Wow.
Oh, my God.
Even got me on the list, and I'm jumping on the bandwagon.
TD, that's okay. Because you, at least I know you've been to the games over the years, the last couple of years when they kind of sucked. So
sure
if you were going to the games, and I actually thought about this yesterday, which was like, I'm not sitting here like trying to sell tickets for the Predators. They have people that do that, and so that's their job. But playoff hockey can be pretty special when the team is good, and this team is good. And it's just something I tell people, like, if you're thinking about getting the tickets, you want to do it now because when it comes time to everybody wanting them, it'll be too late. But that's, again, they can sell their own tickets on that one. Let's go to phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Kyle has been waiting patiently and is up for a TD on the TD Power Hour. Kyle, go ahead.
What's going on, TD? Good to talk to you again.
All right, good to talk to you too, my guy.
All right, I got two things. Burks, I like him now with Ridley going into the slot. I don't feel like he can run the full route tree, and I think he could take serious advantage of some safeties and some 5'9" corners, like Molden, something like that. I just think that he could really thrive, especially given help on the outside now. And my other thing was, I called Jared in about this yesterday. Tackle's a serious need, both sides of this team. What would you think about, say number 7 taking Alt if he's there, and then number 38 taking, Fisher or Patrick Paul, the guy from Notre Dame, Fisher. What would you think about, just doubling up and make sure our future's safe?
Yeah, good call, Kyle. I actually heard your call yesterday about that. Listen, I think this situation is ideal for Burks because the talent is there, and Kyle is right. The route tree was limited at Arkansas, and I don't know that that's something I would put on him, the full route tree this year. I think it's just another one of those things that we talked about where you find a guy, what he does well, and you just highlight it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to do with him. So hopefully with the burden of responsibility of holding the playmaking title, for the offense, it's not solely on him now. Hopefully that will allow him to elevate the way that he needs to. As for the offensive line, listen, Alt at 7, that's a home run. That's an ideal pick. I just don't know about coming back at 38 because you still have other holes that you have to fill. And I think, this pass rushing situation, if Darius Robinson is there, I'm taking him over Patrick Paul, right? I think because Darius Robinson is one of the 50 first-round picks because you know what happens. We talked about it last week. Every year at this time, there's 50 or so guys who you say that's a first-round pick, and he's one of them. So if he's there at 38, I think you take that. I think if Keon Coleman is there, I think you take that. There's other options that I think will tumble out of that first round that you'll have access to, and I would say those are better picks than Patrick Paul or the other guy that he mentioned.
Terrell says, TD, can the Titans find a green dot inside linebacker after June 1st cuts?
It's very possible because a lot of times, right, the guys who have that green dot are established veterans. So It's definitely possible. I haven't combed through to see possibilities, but yes, I would 100% say that they could find one. I think there's somebody that will be available.
Robert in Spring Hill says, TD, if on the 7th pick, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, and Dallas Turner are all available, who would you pick?
Man, my question would be, who the heck got picked before them to leave that group available?
Bo Nix.
Yeah. Hey, listen, give me Harrison. I think Marvin Harrison is – so I feel Alt is the most pro-ready prospect, but I think Marvin Harrison is the best combination of pro-ready and upside. That Larry Fitzgerald comparison, like I can't get that out of my head. It's perfect. I can't get it out of the head.
I mean, just from the sounds of it, it sounds like the Titans would probably take Marvin Harrison if he's there on the board at 7 too.
I think that they would take him, yes.
Ben says, TD, what's the most important that they need, and what position likely won't be fixed adequately this offseason at all? Which positions do you think they could maybe get by?
I think they could get by at safety. Because don't forget about Matthew Jackson behind him. And, he's from right here in Nashville. That's a story that, like, I've been pitching it. I want to do it, but it just hasn't hit yet. But, I mean, he's from right here in Nashville, right? And now he's playing for the Titans. It's a dope story. He's from that area, the development, housing development right by Nissan Stadium, and it hasn't really been reported. So you got him. I think this team will go without, unless a Christian Haynes is there or something like that. When they manufacture a third-round pick and he's there, I could see them picking him, the guard out of Connecticut. I think they go without picking an interior guy that could come in and compete immediately.
Well, doesn't it kind of feel, too, like on the interior that they're going to – it's like if all else fails, Brunskill, right? That they know what – we all know what they have in Brunskill. Mm-hmm. If Sadiq Charles outplays Brunskill or if Radence, ends up being kind of a Bill Callahan fix-it, then those guys could start and Brunskill could back up. But with only 2 picks in the top 100 –
right.
I don't see them necessarily looking at guard. The one that worried me earlier today was you talking about Jack Gibbons. I feel like they fudged it last year with Gibbons, and while Gibbons does some good things, when he's on the field constantly, he can get exposed for that lack of speed.
And here's the thing. When they go dime, you got one backer on the field, and guess what? Kenneth Murray is not the guy that you're having call the defense.
Right.
So what do you do in that situation? You know what I mean? That means he has to come out when they go dime. What do we talk about? How Kenneth Murray could be a big boost in the pass rush department. Now you're losing that in dime package, and when you're in dime, you're expecting pass, so that's a tough thing.
Caleb says, TD, what is Xavier Legette being the steal of the draft? What is the likelihood that the Titans will pick him at 38?
I don't think he makes it to the second round. He's one of those guys. Quinyon Mitchell, those types, man, they have done an excellent job. A.D. Mitchell, they've done Xavier Worthy. They've done an excellent job this draft circuit and pushing themselves into, first-round status. I don't think he makes it. I mean, look, 4'3", 6'1", 227 pounds, catches the football well, has all the production, has a good story, right? He was there, went through the COVID year, then special teams, demon, then got the shot, and right out the cannon, 100-plus yards against UNC, to start the year. And you see what he did. Man, the Senior Bowl, the Combine, I don't think he's there in the second round.
This is a really good question. Will asks, if the Chargers don't draft Joe Alt and Minnesota trades the 2 first-rounders to the Titans for 7, who ends up taking Joe Alt?
So the Titans would be at 7, correct?
The Titans would be moving to 11.
Oh, yeah, 11. Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, and the Vikings would be at 7. So, okay. So in that scenario, the Chargers don't draft Joe Alt. The Giants don't draft Joe Alt, I'm assuming. Because I would say they get one of the receivers.
The Titans would be not taking Joe Alt in order to make this trade.
I think that they could still get Joe Alt at 11.
The question is Chicago at 9. Do they go Joe Alt over Braxton Jones, who I think is their left tackle, or do they go Rome Odunze to go with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen?
Yeah, that's a tough call.
And then the Jets at 10, they signed Tyron Smith, but I mean, is Tyron Smith?
I think the Jets at 10, I think they get Brock Bowers. That's where I think Bowers goes.
Overall?
Overall.
See, that's the one organization where if that was any other team in the situation that the Jets are in, I would take Joe Alt even if Tyron Smith is healthy, because then it's like, well, I can find a place to put Joe Alt on the line, and he can be in a room for a year with Tyron Smith, or when the inevitable happens that Tyron Smith gets hurt, then I'm going to put Joe Alt in at left tackle. But Aaron Rodgers probably looks at this like, we've got a left tackle, and so he'll throw a fit if they end up drafting a position they already have.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. And, your guy Morgan Moses is on the right side. So
I like Morgan Moses.
I think that they take Bowers. I think they take Bowers at 10.
Interesting that you could trade to 11, get Alt, and take that second first-rounder and get Chop Robinson or A.D. Mitchell or one of these kind of players.
Yeah, imagine that.
TD, great stuff as always for the TD Power Hour, which is presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. TD, tell us about ESPN Bet Sportsbook.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. ESPN Bet is ready to take you through all the huge sports moments this spring. It is the exclusive sportsbook of ESPN, and it has it all. Offers and promotions from Scott Van Pelt, Stephen A. Smith. It's from the playoff intensity to getting on the links and out to the ballpark. Guess what? There's no better time to be a sports fan. New users get $100 in bonus bets if you make any sportsbook bet, so go ahead and download that app today. ESPN BET. What a play. You must be 21 or older and in Tennessee. For problem gambling support, call or text TN Redline at 800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Go ahead and see the app for details.
Coming up next on the program, I actually think somebody is not giving Rand Carthon and his crew enough credit. We'll explain. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. So I know everybody thinks I hate Rand Carthon, and everybody thinks that I go out of my way to just every chance I get throw Rand Carthon under the bus, and I don't think that's true. I think what happens is if I see something I don't like, then I go crazy about it. Like this idea that Nicholas Petit-Frere can be starting at right tackle next year for the Titans. I don't like it. So then I go crazy about it. But I also believe in being fair. That is what I have always said about this program is we try to be fair no matter what. So when you guys get on me every time I say something about Rand or a decision that was made by the Titans that I don't necessarily like or a decision that was made that is hurting them today, you guys say things like, that's not fair, Jared. That mistake was Vrabel's fault. And the fact that everything wrong that happened with this team last year being Vrabel's fault, I think is a little ridiculous. And then you tell me Rand's draft was incredible. And I'm like, incredible. They took a guard with the 11th overall pick, and we don't even know if that guard is going to be any good. And yes, they got a quarterback in the second round, and that's great. But if the Titans really believed that he was a franchise quarterback, they would have drafted him with the 11th overall pick. And people are like, no, Jared, we found a franchise left guard, a franchise quarterback, and a franchise running back, and that's a great draft. I'm like, let's see, before we host a parade. But I also am not going to tell you that it was a terrible draft. I'm not going to tell you it was a below average draft. And the Athletic today is. They have ranked and graded the 2023 drafts. And I was looking for the Titans, and I figured the Titans would be up towards the top just because you guys on Twitter, every time we have a discussion about the general manager, you guys tell me every time that draft was incredible. And the Athletic gives the Titans 2023 draft a C-. Now remember, C is supposed to represent average. I know some people view C's as bad things because they're only allowed to make A's and B's. And I know other people say, hey, C is average, C's passing, just like D, But C- means below average. It doesn't mean poor, which is a D. And it doesn't mean F, which is a failure. But C- is below average. The Athletic writes, Peter Skoronski was the first step towards rebuilding Tennessee's offensive line, and he looks like he will be one of the top young guards in the NFL. I don't know where we got that from. He was not very good last year, but okay, whatever. Tajay Spears still has to prove himself durable enough for an increased workload, but he averaged more than 4.5 yards per carry as a rookie, and 70% of his yardage came after contact. The big question, the Athletic writes, is quarterback Will Levis, whom the Titans will be evaluating closely in 2024. I don't think C- is fair. I don't think that draft class, again, we're talking about below average. And I think that's a little harsh. Number one, as of right now, the Titans have 3 starters out of their 6 picks. If Jalen Duncan wins the right tackle spot, it'll technically be 4. But if that happens, I'm going to go crazy. If that happens, then they get a big fat F, not for the draft class, but just for in general, because I don't think Jalen Duncan can do that. But again, they're going to have 3 guys starting with their first 6 picks, or with their 6 picks from last year, between Skoronski, Levis, and Spears. And yes, the whole draft will be defined by Levis because quarterback's the most important position. But I also think we have to look at it like this. Here is what the second round has produced in terms of quarterbacks over the last 5 years, going back to 2017. No, 6 years, going back to 2017. There was no second-round quarterback in 2022. Desmond Ridder went in the third round. 2021, Kyle Trask at Tampa Bay. Sucks. 2020, Jalen Hurts. Good. But after the first year, they were desperately trying to keep Carson Wentz. So even they were skeptical about Hurts before turning the keys over to him in 2021 in that second year. And they were trying to get Russell Wilson ahead of 2022. They ended up not doing it, and Hurts had a franchise year. But Hurts, franchise quarterback. So that's a good pick. 2019, Drew Lock. 2018, no second-round quarterback. 2017, Deshaun Kaiser. And we all saw Deshaun Kaiser in training camp. You guys didn't. We did. He stinks. But again, Kaiser got a starting opportunity. Locke got a starting opportunity. Trask has not gotten a starting opportunity. And right now, Levis is at the point where he's getting a starting opportunity. That said, I believe Levis has done more than Drew Lock ever did as a starting quarterback in the NFL up into this point. And so if we're taking that into the context of a second-round quarterback, then you have to argue that that's actually pretty decent. I mean, again, Levis was solid as a rookie quarterback given what he was dealing with. Certainly made mistakes last year, but also great plays, great comebacks, great throws. So it has to be a little bit better. But when they say this draft's going to hinge on Levis, yes. Their tenures are going to hang on Will Levis. If Levis isn't good, they're all going to get fired. But here's where I won't necessarily commend the 23 class, but I also won't throw it under the bus, and that is Skoronski. Because we made every excuse in the book for him last year. Oh, he had an appendectomy, Jared. Oh, he was playing next to two bums, Jared. Oh, he had a horrible offensive line coach, Jared. Well, guess what? Those excuses don't exist anymore. The appendectomy will be over a year old. He's a second-year pro. He's going to be next to the highest-paid center in the NFL, and he is going to have the 7th overall draft choice next to him. He's going to have maybe the greatest line coach in the history of the NFL coaching him. There are no more excuses. If Skoronski is not a perennial Pro Bowler, then it's a bad pick. And if you flub the 11th overall pick in the draft, especially when you take I don't want to say meaningless position, but certainly not a premium position, then you should be docked. But I don't think we can say that yet. I don't think we're there yet. So I think this is a perfect example of reality. Again, one side, the boo-hoo Titans crew, that no matter what they do, every move's a good move. And every time I bring up the fact that they don't have a right tackle, they get mad at me saying, it's March, Jared. What are they supposed to do? It's March. They're supposed to get a right tackle. Instead of that, I think you guys are off your rocker when you talk about this 2023 draft class like it was some unbelievable can't miss, like it was the Texans draft with the offensive rookie and defensive rookie of the years. But I also don't think it was a C-. I think the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. And that's a B-, C, which is average, something like that. But a C-? I didn't think it was that bad. I don't think they're giving them enough credit. So, again, you can get on me, say whatever you want, but in this case, I don't think they're being fair, and I'm calling it out. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So the Titans are willing to put their foot down on something. They're willing to say they believe in something that I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't know anything about other than rumors and conjecture. But it's a pretty big risk. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's one I'm going to hold them accountable for. We'll get to that coming up next here on Stillman & Company. Let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, heating, cooling, and electrical. I love my friends at Hiller. They take great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. Let Hiller be your go-to. And this month is Happy's Golden Ticket Sweepstakes at Hiller. Enter to win at HillerGoldenTicket.com. All you have to do is enter your email, and you're automatically entered to win. Prizes include a $5,000 Hiller gift card, a $1,000 Hiller gift card, or one of 10 Happy Hiller Club memberships. Or take advantage of zero-interest financing for 12 months on select new HVAC systems, tankless water heaters, and whole home generators. Do not miss out. Enter to win now. Again, that is HillerGoldenTicket.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Happy Fish Truck today.
So I got around a lot of really, really smart people. And one of the classmates I had a PhD in neuroscience from the University of Minnesota. He had an advanced analytics degree from Oxford, and he helped design the AI technology for one of the top medical device companies in the country, where the AI was used to help the doctors identify cancer in patients. And I was just fascinated by this. And so I took what was a football problem and we put it in the context of AI. And one of the problems that we have in football is we spend a lot of money on players that don't pan out for injury. A lot of times they get injured and you end up paying for them injury settlements, or you end up cutting them once they get healthy. I was like, if we can reduce our pool there, if we can reduce our risk within that pool of players, I mean, that would be a game changer. If you can save an owner $1 million, $2 million off of one decision, I mean, that's a game changer. So I got with these guys, and we started to attack the problem. And to make a long story short, we were able to develop some models that seemed promising.
There you go. That was Chad Brinker talking about how he went to business school and saw the AI models that cure cancer, and they're bringing them to the NFL, supposedly. I mean, I think that was all sunshine pumping, but I think a lot of people heard that and they were like, oh, yes, we're entering the analytic age. We're going to be smarter than everybody else. And I'm like, your cancer curing model really helped you with Andre Dillard. Well, Paul Kaharski goes inside of the Titans' acquisition for L'Jarius Sneed. Now, Chad Brinker, I think, is talking out of school a little bit here, because there are some pretty deep quotes about L'Jarius Sneed in here. And, Ian, I don't think they're allowed to talk about L'Jarius Sneed like that, but
I guess not technically.
I guess whatever. So Kaharski wrote about the L'Jarius Sneed trade, and Chad Brinker said that patience is a virtue, particularly in our sport. Sometimes people don't want to be patient. They want to hurry up and jump out and take care of business, and sometimes you have to do that. In this case, we put together a pretty good plan and strategy heading into free agency, blah, 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 blah. Just it's kind of like the same curing cancer thing. However, when they talked about the knees, Paul wrote in here that apparently one concern with Sneed is a bulky knee that limited his practice participation in 2023 for the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. There has been huge buzz among reports at the NFL annual meetings that it is a degenerative condition that will be a long-range problem for him. Stop. First of all, regardless of what the conjecture is, it seems to me that that has to be true, because if not, a player of this caliber does not go for a third-round pick in next year's draft. We continue. Carthon and Brinker both told me about researching the knee from afar even before Sneed passed his physical with the Titans. Players with issues like Sneed's almost always pass their physical after a trade, so Tennessee had to be comfortable with his physical condition before they agreed to the trade and the contract extension. So again, the Titans had to be okay with the knee. They had to be okay with it, because if they traded, then, working out the waiver or whatever would be very problematic. So I don't know if they included a waiver in this or not. It's the kind of thing that we'll never know, because the agents are the ones who talk to the national reporters like Schefter and Rappaport that put this stuff out there, and they're not going to tell you, yeah, we had to get a waiver for my guy's $55 million because he's got a bad knee. So Paul continues, quote, once you get to the spot when the two parties are agreeing that you can have those discussions, normally trainers will reach out to each other and share the information, Brinker said. Our league is very tight-knit and close, and you have friends in different things, particularly in something like this. There's information, you dig into those relationships, you do have to try to gather. Nothing is foolproof. You try to make the best decision off of what you are able to gather. It's good to hear what's been the history, not only talking to the player, but also the previous club. Then our guys went through the medical exam on our side and are feeling very good about where everything is. So, what this is telling us is that the Titans talked to the Chiefs medical staff. And after talking to the Chiefs medical staff, apparently the Titans medical staff felt comfortable enough to try to make this deal. Am I the only one who's skeptical about that? Rand Carthon saying, quote, you do research and you explore and you make moves if you're not And you don't make moves if you're not comfortable with it, Carthon said. You're not going to go into a situation where you trade for any player of any high caliber and you still have questions when you bring him in. You hear everything from everybody. Some of it can just be rumor, but you have to explore it. You do your due diligence, but you find out. Even if it's something that's not real, it makes you dig that much deeper, go a little bit further. If it's true, you figure it out. If you figure out where you are. If it's not, then it's water under the bridge. Basically, what I took from that is the Titans are telling us the knee's fine. And I have no idea if the knee's fine or not. I've never met L'Jarius Sneed. I've never analyzed those knees. But the Titans are telling us, and again, these are their words, not mine. They're telling us that the knee is fine. It's a rumor. They did their research. They talked to the Chiefs medical team, and they came away from it and said, it's all good. Now, again, they could be lying. There could be a waiver in there that if he misses 3 games because of the knee, then the guarantees are void, or there could be something in there. I don't know. And I highly doubt that the Titans would tell everybody if they did something like that because they don't want to make the player look bad. They don't want to piss off the agent. But if it is as written that the Titans took the Chiefs trainer's word for it and felt comfortable about it, the Titans trainers, the same trainers who were here for Caleb Farley and Julio Jones, if that's the case and the knee is bad on Sneed, that can get you fired. And it should get you fired. I begged the Titans not to make the trade for Julio Jones. I begged them. And yesterday, Joe was sitting here saying, well, you know, Julio had missed some games the year before, but Julio hadn't missed more games than... I don't care. I remember at that time, I remember going over it, and I remember us saying, no, 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 you all getting mad. And then when I said no after they made the trade, I was like, oh, that's a bad idea. You guys went crazy on me. And I think that trade really hurt John Robinson. When we're talking big picture and the owner and everything else, I mean, I don't think it was as bad as Farley. I don't think it was as bad as Radence and Isaiah Wilson and the A.J. Brown trade. Though I actually don't think the A.J. Brown trade is what got John Robinson fired. As much as people bring that up, I do not think that the A.J. Brown trade got Robinson fired. Because I've talked to people with the Titans that said that the A.J. Brown trade didn't get him fired. That was a group decision. But I definitely think the Julio thing blew up in his face. And that was a situation where I had talked to somebody in the league who said that their team's doctors laughed at the Titans when they made the Julio Jones trade. I know L'Jarius Sneed is a good player. So when all he can go for is a third-round pick in next year's draft, that tells me that there is something there. But sometimes it can be overblown. Just like somebody's attitude can be overblown. Just like Randy Moss. People thought when he was in Oakland, they said, oh, Randy Moss, he's not the same anymore. He can't run the same. He's not this. He's not. No, it's just that the Raiders sucked. And as soon as he went to New England with Tom Brady, he was great. But if those knees are bad, what you cannot do is you can't go around parading, we've got our AI that finds cancer, and it's going to save us every little penny on analytics, and then go spend $55 million guaranteed and get 6 games out of the guy like David Givens. That cannot happen. And if that happens, those guys should be fired. So it's the kind of move that if I own the team and they said to me, we feel comfortable about the knee, and we feel comfortable about it because our trainers and our doctors talked to Kansas City. And I promise you, Mr. Stillman, that knee's going to hold up for 3 years, which is the guarantee. Okay. But, and so the Titans are telling us the knee is fine. Just like if the Titans were to take somebody with a character issue and the Titans were to tell us, hey, I know the guy has a domestic past, but he's fine now. and then that were to rear its ugly head, you'd be held accountable for that too. So the knee is a red flag, but the Titans say it's not a big deal and they'll be okay going forward, and I'm fine with that. But that better be what happens. And if not, you guys should be accountable, should be held accountable for it. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. 615-737-1025. There is one thing that I want to yell and scream and go crazy about if it happens. And maybe because I don't want to believe that it will happen, I'm going to believe that it won't happen. But I am starting to believe the duck theory when it comes to something very, very dangerous that could happen to the Titans. We'll do that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
What stood out to you about that conversation with the new Titans head coach?
Well, I talked, his conversation went to the positions where they have not addressed things. I think it's pretty clear that he is expecting that they will draft an inside linebacker to go with Kenneth Murray, which is definitely a necessity. Talked to him about the lack of edge players, and he pumped up Landry and Key, of course, but he did not mention the other guys by name. So I don't think that bodes very well for Rashad Weaver or Caleb Murphy. Safety, they've talked to Justin Simmons and had Marcus May in for a visit. He talked maybe about the market downshifting eventually. So I would think those guys could still be in play. And there's not a lot of action going on with them. And he said Dylan Radins is a guard right now for them. So Jalen Duncan.
He keeps saying that.
And Nicholas Petit-Frere are the right tackle competitors right now. And the right tackle could be one of those guys. He said there's potential for them to add a veteran option at some point, but didn't make it sound like it's a pressing thing.
There he goes, PK, talking about his conversation with Brian Callahan. And I just got one thing to say. TD was on the show earlier today, and he said that he thinks that there's a chance that Jack Gibbons is going to be wearing the green dotted inside linebacker. You heard right there. Paul says he thinks there could be a battle between Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
and Jalen Duncan. I think that's a disaster waiting to happen. Don't make me tell the right tackle story again. And then, maybe they'll wait it out at safety or they'll see. Here's what I'll say about fudging it at positions that are important, like right tackle and green dot inside linebacker. If the Titans believe that they can get by with Jack Gibbons being the green dot inside linebacker, fine. I don't agree with that. But if they think it, fine. But if it doesn't work, don't come bitching to me about it. If you put Nicholas Petit-Frere out there at right tackle and he sucks as bad as he sucked last year in the 100 snaps that he participated in after coming back from the gambling suspension, which is, by the way, not a good thing. So when you say, well, Jared, it's not fair, he was suspended for gambling, I know, that's a bad thing. If you do that and he stinks, and in October, it's like, oh, God, the line again. It's so bad. If that's the case, don't come crying to me about it. So take your risks. You take your risk on L'Jarius Sneed's knees. I get it. I used to ask Floyd. I actually told Josh Hurd, who's the athletic director at Louisville, and just hired Pat Kelsey to be their basketball coach. And I told him last night, this might have been off the air. Maybe it was on the air. I can't remember. But I asked Floyd one time why he didn't criticize David Poyle over something that David Poyle had screwed up. And Floyd said, because you, talking to me, you've never been in that situation before. You've never made those kind of decisions. You don't understand how much discussion and how much information goes into making these type of decisions. And you don't know what it means for everybody when you make those kind of decisions, and I do, so I'm not going to criticize them for that. I said, okay. But at the same time, this is a business. And we know that there are rumors about L'Jarius Sneed's knees. I don't know about you, but I saw enough last year to know that Jack Gibbons can't run in the NFL consistently enough to be on the football field with the green dot. And I've seen 2 years of Nicholas Petit-Frere where I see a frame that says this guy should have been the 16th pick in the draft and this guy should be a starting left tackle in the NFL, and yet he can't play left tackle and he might not be able to play right tackle, and he fell to the third round because for some reason he just did not produce. He was the top recruit in the country. It was between Alabama, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. That should be better than the third round. So you want to take those risks, that's fine. But don't come crying to me if they don't work. And if they work, I'll give you credit. Reed texts and goes, who are the right tackles the Titans could still sign or fail to sign in free agency. I get it. We don't have a right tackle that satisfies you, but tell me who we missed out on or are going to miss out on in free agency if we don't act now. That comes from Reed. So here's what you missed in free agency. The number one target that I had for right tackle, and I would have overpaid in order to get it just so I wouldn't have to be worried about it, is Jermaine Illuminor. Now, he went to the Giants on a 2-year, 14, something like that, 2-year, $14 million contract. But he is a starting right tackle. That is the kind of guy who I would have signed. I would have signed Jermaine Illuminor before I signed Tony Pollard, only because I already had a running back. You know, and if I needed to go get another running back, I could have gotten another running back even if it wasn't Tony Pollard. But I don't have a right tackle. So that's the first guy that I circled. I did all the research on the available tackles out there. They should have gone hard after Illuminor. If for no other reason, Illuminor has a lot of experience at both right tackle and right guard, the Titans could have kicked him inside to right guard if they ended up getting a right tackle. Morgan Moses is a starting right tackle for the Ravens. He has started everywhere he's been. He is the model of consistency. Again, not a Pro Bowler, not a Hall of Famer. But he went from the Ravens to the Jets in exchange for a 4th-round pick swap. You couldn't have done that? Tyron Smith went for $6.5 million guaranteed. I don't even like Tyron Smith because he's hurt so much. Very good player. But he's hurt so much. And I made the argument that I would have given him $7 million with incentives that would have allowed him to get whole. And then if I draft Joe Alt, then I can put Tyron Smith on the right side, which is what he was coming out of college. And the Titans, I don't think, had any interest in that. And then there's Andrus Peat, who they brought in for a visit as a potential swing tackle but did not sign. Does that satisfy you, Reed? And don't even get me started on Mike McGlinchey last year, who wanted to be here and would have taken significantly less money than he got from the Denver Broncos, but the Titans were never interested. Texter says, it sure is good the Titans are listening to you in that building because you are solving all of their problems. You should have a position over there with all of these opinions. You know, Chris, I don't think it would have been a bad idea. General Manager Jared Stillman, I don't think it'd be a bad idea. Let me tell you something that wouldn't happen if I was GM of the Titans. We wouldn't be drafting guards in the first round of the draft. That I can promise you. Texture said, are the Titans allowed to have Sneed do an MRI on the knee, or do they just have to take the Chiefs' word for it because an MRI would give them a lot better evaluation of the knee? So I don't know what all goes into the physical. You know, Kaharski is of the belief that, and he kind of hinted at that in his story that he wrote, he's kind of the belief that if you do it, that if you make this kind of trade, that the physical is just standard and you tell the doctors, you know, hey, pass him. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. You know, Kaharski says that Nick Saban's lying when he gets mad about how the Miami doctors wouldn't pass Drew Brees. But Randy Mueller, who was the general manager, writes for The Athletic at the time, says that that's absolutely what happened. So make of it what you will. So, I mean, I would guess that if they were worried about the knees, when Sneed took the physical, they could have had him undergo an MRI. Now, I'm sure Sneed's camp could have objected to it, but again, the question is, do you want to sign for the money or not? See, this is where the Titans like to be vague, where the Titans use a lot of buzzwords, where they say a lot, but they don't really tell you anything. And I don't blame them for this, but again, I'm just pointing this out. When Chad Brinker tells Paul, you know, oh yeah, our medical team spoke to their medical team, and we're a very tight-knit group in the NFL, and we shared the information. And what information did you share? When one guy picked up the phone and talked to the other guy, when Todd Torricelli, the trainer of the Titans, talked to the head trainer of the Chiefs, what was it? Was it hey, what happened with the knee? Oh, well, he had some inflammation. We, worked on the knee, and he should be fine. Or was it, hey, can you send me over every MRI you guys did on that knee over the years? Can you send me his exit physical? I don't know. And they're not going to tell you, so you probably shouldn't ask. Or if you do ask, just know they're not going to tell you. But to answer your question, I don't know. right? Like Rand Carthon says, if there's a rumor out there, you have to investigate it because it might be true. Who knows? Well, what was the extent of the investigating that they did? And it's not included in the PK piece. So to answer your question, I agree with you. Like I would feel so much better if you told me that Kansas City sent over every MRI over the last couple of years of that knee. And that the Titans were able to analyze the MRI and that they were looking at it saying, thumbs up. Caleb says, I don't want to start thinking that Bill Callahan is some sort of magician that can turn any bad player into a Pro Bowler. But with Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, I hear he has the size and talent. So is it crazy to think that Callahan can turn him into at least a serviceable player this year? Also, I wonder how important Brian Callahan thinks the offensive line is. In Cincinnati, they went to the Super Bowl with a bad offensive line. But the thing is, they have Joe Burrow, and the Titans don't. Well, I would say this. The offensive line is probably the reason why over the last 2 years, not counting last year, but the Super Bowl year and the year after in the AFC title game, the offensive line might be why the Bengals didn't win the Super Bowl. But he did say, we like premium touchdown scorers, so who knows. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. We will continue to get to your phones. But tonight, the NCAA tournament starts back up. And I have an NCAA tournament thought. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Speaking of the NCAA tournament, did your brackets get busted? Well, we have a chance for you to win with 102.5 and 106.3 The Game's Bracket Challenge. Go to theGameNashville.com and fill out your 16-team bracket to compete to win great prizes, including tickets to see Kings of Leon at Bridgestone Arena on September 26th. The 102.5 The Game Bracket Challenge is brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook, Twin Peaks, and Volunteer Hose and Gasket. And brackets will close 15 minutes prior to the first game tonight.
is on upset alert tonight. Jay Williams, talk to me.
I got them in my Final Four.
Okay.
And Seth, every single day when we're doing College Game Day, our partner in crime, Brees Davis, always says how he thinks they're going to check out early because it's his alma mater. I'm going to go North Carolina on upset alert. This is an Alabama team that plays like an NBA team. Nate Oates, they believe in threes and layups. That's it. There's no mid-range games. There's no middies. It's either at the rack, they're racking it, Seth, or they're shooting threes. You got a guy, Mark Sears, who is one of the best players in the nation. And look, this is a team that literally, I think their shot, it was like 2 of 38 or some crazy abnormal shot selection against Arizona earlier in the year and had a chance to win that game. So you can question their defense, and I know how good North Carolina is. And I know this is a North Carolina team that is better defensively than they were years past. But this is an Alabama team, Seth, that you and I have talked about. If they get hot, this is an Alabama team, Seth, I think that can beat North Carolina.
There you go. That was Jay Williams today. So we got basketball coming back tonight. As soon as we get off the air, basketball will be on, and the Predators at 9 o'clock tonight. But, so I like the NCAA tournament. I've watched the NCAA tournament. I'm sure everybody's watched the NCAA tournament. But I have this weird relationship right now, it feels like, with the NCAA tournament this year. And I don't know if it's me or if it's the tournament itself. But I'm going to watch tonight, and I think most of you are probably going to watch tonight. But when I woke up this morning, I had no idea who was playing tonight. Like, I know the Vols are playing tomorrow, and I'm rooting for the Vols because I want good things to happen to Rick Barnes this year. But this tournament is not consuming me. And I wonder if I'm alone in this or if everybody else is the same way. Like, is it a me thing here? Or is it, this is just the nature of the NCAA tournament, which is Friday or Thursday, Friday, we all watched. Saturday, Sunday, we all watched. Then we all kind of forgot about it. And now we're going to go back to watching tonight, and then we'll watch tomorrow, and we'll watch Saturday, and we'll watch Sunday. And then we'll worry about other stuff after that. And then the Final Four will happen, and we'll watch Saturday, and we'll watch Monday. And then they'll win the tournament, and we'll forget about it like we always do. Or if this is just a me thing, right? Like, I'm trying to figure this out. Is it me or is it everybody? Because I do know tonight I'm going to watch. I mean, I'm looking right now at the games, that are on tonight. San Diego State, UConn? Yes. UNC, Alabama? Yes. Like, I will be watching the tournament tonight. But I'm not going to, I don't think tomorrow I'll be sitting there unless something crazy happens tonight, I don't think that I'll be waking up and just, oh my God, I can't wait for tip-off of the NCAA tournament. And again, I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's the lack of star coaches in the game. Coach K's not in there anymore. Jay Wright's not in there anymore. Roy Williams is not in there anymore. Rick Pitino didn't make the tournament.
Think it's a Cinderella thing?
Maybe the lack of Cinderellas.
I mean, NC State, they stayed hot. They kept rolling. But other than that,
and you know what? I got into that NC State-Oakland game.
Yeah.
Like, I watched it. I got into it. But I'm not. Like, I cared when I was watching it. And then it was over, and then I didn't care anymore. But I will say this. Every time I hear this music, I'm like, oh, yes. Yes. We get that NCAA tournament music. I just get so excited. You know that CBS music I'm talking about? Like, every time we get that, I get excited. But, again, as far as, like, what's the big, interesting topic to talk about today on the radio about the tournament, I don't have anything for you other than I'm going to watch. But I'm really more worried about the Preds and the Titans. And, again, I don't know if it's me or if it's everybody else. Tim is up next here on our program. Thank you for waiting. What's up, Tim?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way as you. The tournament's not consuming me this year either. Part of it is that Kentucky, my team, got out early. But part of it is just there's a lot of other stuff going on in the sports world, too.
I hate speaking for other people. Thank you, Tim. I hate speaking for other people. But I just think that we're kind of all worried about our own stuff. In this case, the Titans offseason, the Predators and their streak. And it's not like, the Vols. I mean, I care about the Vols, but I'm not like Joe and sitting here like, the matchup for Zakai Ziegler versus their guards tomorrow night. Like, oh, yes. That I love. See, I mean, I hear that. I'm like, I'm in a good mood. I'm in a good mood for this. But, like, again, as far as, like, the topic kind of stuff, like, meh. Keith from Bowling Green says, I'm like you about the NCAA tournament. He says he thinks it's because he's a UK fan and they're out of it. But, again, like, I grew up a Vanderbilt fan. And Vanderbilt didn't make it to the tournament every year, but I still freaking love the tournament. And I went to college at Louisville. And some years we're really good. And some years we're not. And I've still kind of always cared about the tournament. This year, Dre says it's the fact that the Preds are on fire. I certainly think that's a part of it. One texter said, boy, we got a lot of Kentucky fans in here. Says, I quit watching when Kentucky goes out typically. One texter says the women's tournament has been more exciting. I haven't watched a lot of the women's tournament, but do we know when they're going to drop that bombshell article on Kim Mulkey?
I actually heard Joe Rexroad talking about that on Robbie and Rexroad this morning. Apparently he's friends with the reporter and that he's been texting with the reporter this week and that they are working on publishing the story, but no specifics.
I'll put it to you like this. Kim Mulkey got up there and gave that long press conference about how the media is all fake news and that the Washington Post has a sleazy reporter and he's working on a hit piece for 2 years on her and how she's not going to be bullied and I'm going to sue him. I got the best defamation lawyer there ever was and I'm going to sue you. And so she did all of that. I'll just put it to you like this. I think I've met Kim Mulkey a couple of times. They're not rememberable experiences. But when LSU hired Kim Mulkey from Baylor, I know a lot about Kim Mulkey because I used to work in women's basketball. I used to be an AP poll voter for women's basketball. I used to be very big into women's basketball. And when LSU hired Kim Mulkey, I told Caroline, I said, look, you're going to win, but you because that's just how little I think of her. So I am waiting for that to drop. All right, 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So Charles Robinson said today that all this J.J. McCarthy smoke is coming from Jim Harbaugh. So now the question is, why? And what about Minnesota? Because they seem to be the J.J. McCarthy team. What does it mean for the Titans? We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live in the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. So Charles Robinson was on Robbie and Rexrow today, Yahoo Sports senior NFL insider, and he was asked about the J.J. McCarthy smoke. Now, I believe quarterback goes 1, quarterback goes 2, quarterback goes 3. Caleb Williams goes 1 to Chicago. Washington picks between Drake May and Jaden Daniels. I think ultimately they're going to pick May. Whoever doesn't go second goes third to New England. And I think that's pretty much set in stone. Then there's 4. Arizona has already said we want to trade out. And J.J. McCarthy apparently seems to be the 4th quarterback. And while I watched Michigan play football this year, and I never watched a Michigan football game and thought, damn, look at that quarterback. Clearly, there is some real heat with JJ because Mike Tannenbaum put out a mock draft yesterday, and in his mock draft, former NFL GM, he has JJ McCarthy going 4th overall to Arizona. Meanwhile, Rick Spielman, the old Vikings general manager, does work for SiriusXM and CBS, and he is hot for JJ McCarthy. And we know that Minnesota is interested in a quarterback because they acquired a second first-round pick once they knew that Kirk Cousins was going to Atlanta. So Charles Robinson was on Robbie and Rexrow today, and he was explaining where he has heard all of this J.J. McCarthy heat and where it's been coming from.
So when I start calling around, I'm asking, like, where's this coming from? A number of personnel guys are like, pointing the finger at Harbaugh. They're like, the guy won't shut up about the kid. Every time he sits down and someone puts a mic in his face, he's saying, J.J. McCarthy this, J.J. McCarthy that. He's the best quarterback in the draft, like all these different things. And there's a very strong suggestion that a lot of this stuff that's coming out about McCarthy is Harbaugh behind the scenes pushing it. And everybody's like, hey, isn't it convenient that every quarterback that goes in front of him is a good thing for his team? You know, all of a sudden he's sitting at 5 and every single thing, like he needs everything except for quarterback. And at 5, if he can get 4 quarterbacks drafted in front of him, everything's going to be there for him.
Okay. Who's the expert on J.J. McCarthy? It's Jim Harbaugh. Who benefits the most by J.J. McCarthy being hyped up? It's Jim Harbaugh. And I've run the numbers. And I've looked at Minnesota at 11, and I've thought to myself, you know, Minnesota could make this trade. And they would actually, if they dealt the 2 first-round picks to move up to 5 to draft J.J. McCarthy or to move up to 4, technically they would be, with 11 and 23, they would be giving up value in order to make that move to get the quarterback. And if you're a team that's trading up in a draft, you're giving up value. What you're saying is we value the player more than the pick, so we're going to make this trade so that it's not necessarily equal. In fact, it might be a little bit more than that, and we're going to make sure we get this player. But I don't know if they have to do that. And here's why. And here's where you come in. I texted Matthew Collar. Now, we had Collar on at the Super Bowl, and Collar covers the Vikings on the day-to-day, but he wrote that book about the analytics of football. And Ian, I thought it was going to be kind of a shouting match between me and him when he came on at the Super Bowl to talk about analytics. And not only was it not a shouting match, but he and I are actually, like, I would consider ourselves buds.
Cool.
Because we talked a bunch after he was on the air that day. Then we hung out at the Sirius Suite. And then, like, we were down at the lobby of the hotel at 3 a.m. at the Luxor one day and just chatting it up. Anywho, I texted Caller, and I said, are the Vikings going to trade up to 7 for J.J. McCarthy and give up both firsts? And Caller told me and said they're more likely to trade up to 4 or 5. And I said, I just don't think anybody's going to take J.J. McCarthy that high. I think, okay, McCarthy's a first-round quarterback. Got it. 4 over Marvin Harrison? And Caller said, I have felt that way too. Maybe he's the guy whose draft stock ends up being faked the whole time. But I don't think Minnesota trades for that second-round pick if they're not interested in a quarterback. So I think a couple of things can be true here. Number one, I think Harbaugh's trying to get the 2 picks from the Vikings. I think, and again, looking at the trade chart and the value, the move from 5 to 11, the 5th pick is valued at 1,700 points. 11 plus 23 equals 2,000 points. So you're talking about gaining 300 points if you're the Chargers, which is roughly a mid-second round pick. So if you're the Chargers, you can do this, and instead of maybe drafting one of these receivers, you can get Talis Fuaga at 11 to play right tackle, and then still get a really good player at receiver at 23 in what is a very deep receiver class. But here's where the Titans actually make a little bit of sense. And that is, again, let's think about the relationships here, and let's think about what Minnesota wants. Minnesota wants J.J. McCarthy. They want to make sure they can get J.J. McCarthy. Where they reside in the draft, Denver behind them, Vegas behind them, New Orleans behind them, and Seattle 2 picks behind New Orleans, could all be interested in a young quarterback. So what Minnesota has to figure out is, where do we have to get in order to get JJ? We've got the 2 first-rounders. If we wanted to move to 4, the chart says we've got enough firepower to get from 11 to 4. But do we really want to just give up these 2 first-rounders? And this is where the Titans come in. First of all, there is a relationship there between Ran Carthon and between Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the general manager of Minnesota. They were both together in San Francisco. Secondly, the Titans could do something with this that the Chargers could not, or maybe the Chargers will not. And that is, in order to make this an even trade, Minnesota could give up 11 and 23, and they could get to 7. But you'd have to give back 38, and you'd get 108, which is a 4th-rounder from them. We talk about all the holes and not having enough picks. So in this instance, you would be picking up an extra 4th-round pick. But you still may be able to get your left tackle at 11. They may be able to get JJ, but instead of just giving up the 2 first-rounders to get JJ, they give up the 2 first-rounders to get JJ, get back the 38th pick, and you get a second first-rounder, which means 2 things. Number 1, it means that before this run on tackles or receivers goes down, you could, in theory, trade back to 11, get that second first-round pick, and walk out of that first round with J.C. Latham at right tackle at 11 and Amarius Mims at left tackle at 23. But it also means that they would have to be comfortable that J.J. would be there at 7. And I think that's kind of the whole guessing game that they've got a month to figure out here. But I wouldn't rule the Titans out. And I think that's a trade I would make. Again, this would be a prearranged trade on draft night, which is, if Joe Alt's not there and Minnesota calls and I'm at 7, they're offering 11 and 23. I give back 38, but I also pick up 108 as a 4th-round pick. I think I'd probably do it. So I'm trying to figure out what's actually real. And if Harbaugh is the one who's hyping up JJ, and it's not Denver who's going to jump up there, and it's not New Orleans who's going to jump up there, then maybe Minnesota says, well, we don't have to give everything up in order to be able to get J.J. McCarthy. We can make a more fair deal with Tennessee, move up to 7, and still get J.J. McCarthy. But that's just something to keep in mind. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 here if you want to weigh in on that. I do have a Predators thought, because today I went down the rabbit hole of first-round playoff opponents, and we'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
But, Tyler, why would we not start with the hottest team right now on the planet? We're talking about the Nashville Predators.
Scott, before we get going in our tour around the NHL, I have a question for you. Is it possible the Nashville Predators finish third place in the Central Division? Like, they're 4 points behind the Winnipeg Jets now. They each have 10 games left. Like, if this streak keeps going, Scotty, like, can you see the Predators finishing third in their division after all this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking the same thing last night. Is there enough runway to cover here for the Preds to make up this ground? So we'll get to the details of it. But ultimately, like you say, 10 games left to play for each squad, and that 4-point bulge doesn't seem to be insurmountable at this point, given the way each team is trending. Now, I made a joke recently. I said, okay, 14-0-2, there's no way they're going to finish up the season going 26-0-2. I don't know. I mean, the way this team is playing.
There you go. That was NHL Network Radio this morning. They're like, I mean, could the Predators win out the rest of the way? I mean, who knows? So I went down the rabbit hole this morning of just looking at the remaining schedules and looking about. And so if you look at the standings right now, Winnipeg has 94 points. They've got 10 games left. The Predators have 90 points. They have 10 games left. But here's what's crazy. Winnipeg plays 6 games, including Vegas tonight. 6 games of their 10 are against playoff teams. The Predators, 3. So the Predators are 4 points back, which is, as we all know, 2 games. Well, today, Winnipeg plays Vegas. You play Arizona, who sucks. You should win. Then you play Winnipeg in another game, which is another one of these point swings. It is very likely that the Predators can catch up with Winnipeg. But then as I saw that, I thought, well, wait a minute. Do I want that to happen? Because right now, Colorado has 97 points. They're in second place in the Central Division. And everybody, Robbie Stanley, Adam Vingan, everybody is telling me that the Predators do not want to play Colorado in the first round of the playoffs. But because, again, Dallas has 4 games left against playoff teams. Colorado has 7 games left, including the Rangers tonight. That actually should be a pretty good game. Colorado has 7 games left against playoff opponents. It seems rather likely that Colorado will finish second in the Central Division. So if you catch Winnipeg and you finish third, you go to Colorado, who again, Vingan and Robbie and all the hockey gurus are telling me, yeah, that wouldn't be very good for the Predators. So here's what as I kept trying to put the numbers together to see where you would finish and everything else, I said, okay, forget about that. I said, what are my priorities for the Predators entering the playoffs? And my number one priority is to stay in the Central Division no matter what. Because staying in the Central Division allows 2 things. Number one, it avoids the West Coast travel. Now, that'll change a little bit if you have to play Winnipeg in the second round. But for right now, it avoids that long West Coast travel. Denver's an easy flight from Nashville. And then secondly, it avoids Edmonton, which is the one team that I think is by far the worst matchup for the Predators. And I just don't think that the Predators can beat them. So I think you want the Predators to catch Winnipeg, even if that means playing Colorado in the first round. The 3 priorities I have. Number 1, stay in the Central. Number 2, avoid Edmonton. Number 3, get Dallas or Winnipeg in the first round. You can't have everything your way all the time. And there is a part of me that wonders if playing Colorado in the first round might be your best opportunity for 2 reasons. Number 1, you can go to Colorado and steal one of those 2 games and kind of put them on their heels a little bit. But also, we know that if you're going to make a run in the Stanley Cup playoffs, depth is going to be a very important aspect of that run because guys are going to get hurt. When we would assume that the Predators are at their freshest would be, I think, right at the beginning of the playoffs. So go ahead, and if you're going to beat Colorado, beat them on the front end. But, man, did I go through the rabbit hole. Here's what I think is going to happen. So I think Dallas is going to be the first seed in the Central Division, which means Colorado's going to be number 2, Nashville's going to be number 3, and Winnipeg is going to be number 4, and they are going to be the first wild card team. Now, Dallas has 99 points with 9 games remaining, Vancouver 98 with 10 games remaining, and Vancouver plays 5 playoff teams. By the way, Ian, do you know who Dallas plays tonight?
No, I don't.
At Vancouver.
Okay.
So here's what's important about this. If Vancouver wins, I think it is probably more likely than not that they end up as the number 1 seed in the West, which means that in that case, Winnipeg would draw into your division playing Dallas in the first round. I think your best bet to get to the Cup final might be playing Colorado in that first. I mean, the best bet is Dallas. You know, you want Dallas to lose, Dallas to finish in second place, Colorado to finish in first place, you to finish in third place, and you get Dallas in the first round. But I think your second best bet would be just get Colorado on the front end and go to war in that first round. And if you can get past them, good, because then you've got Dallas or Winnipeg, 2 teams I think you would be favored against in the second round. And you would avoid Edmonton and the West Coast travel. So I guess we got a scoreboard watch here, and there's no way to know what's going to happen in the end. But I tell you, I think that the way I'm looking at it right now, I think I'm rooting against Dallas, rooting for Colorado, because I think you're going to catch Winnipeg. John says, so if the Predators play Colorado in the first round and lose, then Joe's prediction of a first-round 7-game series would be spot on. Joe's prediction was a 7-game series first-round loss to Dallas. First of all, Joe's prediction could be right. I just think that it's hard for me to envision the way the Predators have been playing. It's hard for me to envision the Predators losing 4 out of 7, which is what it would take for them to lose in the first round of the playoffs. I'm not saying it's impossible for me to see that happening. It would be hard for me to see that. And that might be another reason why you want Colorado on the front end, because you're still on that heater, and maybe you stay on that heater through the rest of the regular season, and you get Colorado and you're still hot and you're still healthy and you're not worn down from travel, and maybe that might be the reason why. The other thing, too, is, again, the Adam Vingan stat, which was 8 teams have had point streaks of 17 games or more over the last 15 years. You're the 9th team. Of those 8 teams, 2 won the Cup, 2 lost the Cup, 2 lost in the conference final, 1 lost in the first round, 1 lost in the second round. The odds tell you that if you're good enough to pull off this kind of streak, you are far more likely to get into the Cup final at a 50% clip than you are to lose in the first round at whatever 1/8 is. What is that? 12.5? I think that's right. So I have a hard time with Joe's prediction just because the math doesn't necessarily check out. Mike says, can we just go back to traditional seating already? Ian, what is traditional? I don't even remember traditional.
The 1 through 8, just like the NBA. Not the whole, 3, 2 wild card.
I think
goes
the
that.
NHL playoffs, I think it's bullcrap.
The 1 through 8 thing works much better. The whole, the way they went to this new playoff format and the whole bracket situation. And
what was the point of doing that?
I'm not totally sure.
Wasn't it to avoid, so here's what I think it is. I think the reason they went to this is for start times. Because what they don't want is in 1 through 8, you're incredibly likely in the Western Conference to have Chicago and San Jose on the same day that you have LA and Nashville and Minnesota and
yeah, but that doesn't matter in the Eastern Conference. No,
but it matters in the West.
Yeah.
So what you do by doing this is you're guaranteed that you're going to have 1 Central start time and you're going to have 1 Western start time, and you're probably more likely than not to have 2 Centrals and 2 Westerns, or I guess Pacifics, 2 Centrals and 2 Pacifics, as opposed to
But they just throw the Centrals
4
at
uneven series.
They just throw the Centrals at 8:45 local time anyways.
They do that all the time, and it drives me crazy.
So, sure, it's Central, but it might as well be West Coast.
But isn't there another game that usually comes on after the 8:30 starts?
There's usually 2. It's like, 7, 7:30, and then like 8:45 and 9 or 9:30, something like that. Those are all Central times, I think. Or maybe it's 6 and 6:30, and then 8:45 and 9, something like that.
One texter says the new playoff format was because they went from 6 divisions to 4 divisions. You could still do the 1 through 8.
I'm not sure. I can't remember the rationale for the time. I don't know if it was a geography thing, a timing thing,
So Grant says that
rivalry thing.
They claim to create more of a rivalry thing with that.
I think that
I
was
just think
bogus.
that's so stupid.
Yeah, you don't need to create more rivalries. You guys play in the division already. Like, what are you trying to do?
I mean, I think it's so stupid anyways. I mean, again, but to
And then
answer
they
the-
got obsessed with the whole bracket. You know, they don't want to reseed. They started getting all, yeah. I remember that, starting with the brackets and people filling out their bracket like it's madness.
Oh, I remember they were always like pumping that like NHL.com bracket challenge, and I'm like, guys, nobody
Nobody
doing
cares.
Here's the thing hockey's got to understand, and I think they understand it. Like, I mean, again, like I wouldn't say that I know Gary Bettman, but I've had him on enough and spent like enough time just chatting with him off the air, on the air to like get a feel for, like, I don't think Gary Bettman's an idiot. And so my gut tells me is Gary Bettman probably knows this. The truth is that on a national level, hockey doesn't play. Like, it just doesn't play. Like, I can't go on Sirius XM and talk about hockey. There's a channel for that, and that is for the niche hockey NHL person. But when you have a good team in a local market, it is addicting, especially in the playoffs. And I don't care if that market is a traditional, my granddaddy grew up rooting for Montreal, or if it's Vegas who's been around for 5 years. If you're good, it is addicting on the local level. And so this idea of like we want to foster rivalries and we want to have national bracket challenges and we want to just stop. You don't need any of that. You got all your games on ESPN Plus anyways. You can't even watch some of them. I mean, it's just whatever. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Hal Gill joins us next. His thoughts on the point streak and the rest of the way. We'll do that. Stillman and Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Right here, Stillman and Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game. You know, I used to look forward to these Hal Gill interviews when the Predators weren't winning every single night, when they had a coach that I didn't think was this incredible coach that they have now, because it allowed me to really put the gloves on and spar and dominate my opponent. And instead, now everything's going great. I just don't know what to do anymore. Hal Gill joins us on the program from Arizona, presented by Duncan. Hal will be on the call tonight as the Predators take on the Arizona Coyotes. Hal, I mean, just when I think that this 17-game point streak was good enough, and I think everything's rolling in the right direction and everything else, I feel like, okay, here's the dud. It was nice while it lasted. And this team did not quit. They come from behind. And what I thought was one of the more exciting games I can remember in Bridgestone Arena history. This team just every game, it feels like there's a whole nother level of wow that they seem to hit. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you weren't blown away by that one, then there's something wrong with you. That building was nuts, and what a great comeback. And it's impressive in this whole streak that they've had. That was the only game they trailed in. I think it's 16 minutes total over 17 games that they were trailing. That's bizarre. And so just the fact that they proved to themselves that they could come back and get into it and find a win when – and remember, that's against Vegas. That's not just like a team that, hey, they were playing well and then didn't at the end of the game. That's Vegas. And I know they're on a back-to-back, but that's a lockdown team. Big defensemen that they're able to get into the interior and have a huge third on. That's impressive.
Hal, when I sat there and I watched Vegas the other night, to your point about them, they were so fast on the ice, at least from where I was sitting. It reminded me, were you on the team in 2011, the year the team got to the second round, played Vancouver?
No.
So I don't know if you remember those Vancouver teams, the team that was really good and got to the seventh game and lost in the Cup final. And it reminded me of that, like that level of speed from guys like Eichel and Hannafin and, some of the additions they've made over the years with some of the players they already had. And yet, outside of the first 10 minutes, where I thought that, they lost a puck battle and Lazan, ends up losing it and it sets up the second goal. And outside of that, they still hung with a team that I think might have more talent than them. And I was prepared at 4-2 to come on the air the next day and say, look, I know that they got run in the first 10 minutes and they lost 4-2, but they just didn't bury some chances and they hung right there with them. Instead, they still won the game. It's like they can outplay teams that are more talented than them, and I don't know exactly where that comes from. Where does it?
Yeah, well, Vegas, to your point with Vegas, yeah, they got Eichel, who's a level talent. They have depth up and down the forward lineup, but their D are big and they're mobile and really tough to play against. That's in my opinion, that's why they won the Cup last year, is because of that defensive unit. They're big and strong, and the Preds, to be able to come back against those guys and compete with them and get to the middle the way they did at the end of the game is remarkable. That's just a sign of where this team is at. And hey, like, would anyone been surprised if they just kind of, hey, it wasn't our night. We kind of, we didn't have a good first period. And like you said, you would have said, hey, it's a tough game, but that didn't sit well with them. And they came back and gave a push. And talking to them after, you listen to every guy, they said, yeah, we really didn't have any panic. We knew we had to play better, and we were just going out. And I think, I used to hate it when coaches always said, worry about the process and not the result. And I think, in looking back at that game, I think Bruno and the leadership and the players up and down the lineup said, let's go play the right way and see what happens. And they did it, and they get the win.
Hal Gill is with us, presented by Duncan. Hal, I hate rental players at the trade deadline. And it's not that I hate the players. I just hate how, fans get so excited and a team will deal a first-round pick for a rental. And it's like that first-round pick is – that player that you're acquiring is not the difference usually in whether or not you go to the Cup final or not. But I think Jason Zucker has been a fabulous addition to what they've – and I looked it up at the stats yesterday, and I saw he's only got 3 points so far, and I said, that can't be right. I mean, I feel his impact out there on the ice. They gave up nothing to get him. it seems like he's fit in perfectly personality-wise, though you would know more about that than me, but he's a big body with experience, and he's played in big games. I think this has been a great addition for the Predators.
Yeah, he's got that feisty battle mentality. He's quick. He's slippery in the corners. They don't I know points. You want a guy that's going to put up some points, and so maybe he hasn't done that. But they go into Florida, and Florida, which is a team that goes in and bullies guys and bullies teams. He stood up and went toe to toe with Cousins and settled an old score. But I think the team got to see what he's all about, the way he plays and competes, and that kind of tenacity and the fight. I feel like there's so many times you see him on the forecheck where maybe he's not going to get there, but he affects the play, and then he's reloading and coming back and adding to the play after that. So I really like what he's brought. I just think it's sometimes it takes a little time to get into a system, especially Bruno's system, which seems to be a little bit tougher to adapt to than other systems. And I think he's done that well, and he's just going to get better.
Hal Gill is with us, presented by Duncan. When we talk playoffs, Hal, we're still about 3 weeks out from the start of the playoffs. What do you feel like you want to see from the Predators between now and the playoffs that would make you feel like, okay, this team is ready to go and ready to make a run?
Yeah, well, you kind of hit on it. I think you were talking to Trotz and talked about what he would like to see. And it's special teams. I think the penalty kill has been really good, and they've gotten some big penalty kills. In the power play, they need to click more efficiently. And I think they're looking for more impact with the power play throughout the game. Now, I will say the bright spot is that when they need a kill at the end of the game, when they're locking down a win, they're getting a kill. They're getting the timely kills. And the power play, you look at that last game, you get a power play and Nyquist snipes it. And I feel like that power play was the most tenacious I've seen our power play look. They did it, I believe it was in Minnesota. In order to tie that game, to bring that to overtime, they had a big goal from Ryan O'Reilly on the power play. And I think when you're looking at timely scoring, that's there. They just need to be a little more consistent throughout the game, because going down the stretch and certainly in the playoffs, you can't just count on your power play when you need them. You need them to put some separation in the game, and penalty kill needs to be the same way. So I like what they're doing. It just needs to impact the game more through a 60-minute span.
Hal, to your point about the power play, did you think that when they went on the power play the other night that they were going to score? Because I did.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I think you have that belief that you can do it. Now, why wouldn't you have that belief in the first period when they get a power play and they toss it around and they don't get in on the entries and they don't get that's the whole thing. You need to have that killer mindset where, okay, we have a power play any time in the game. This puck's going in the back of the net, and I think they have that when they need it. They just need to they need to realize that they need it more often, and that's going to be a game changer, because a 5-on-5 game is, it's as good as anyone in the NHL right now. Just four lines rolling over.
Though, to your point, what I loved about the power play there, first of all, I sat there during that review, and I thought if this goal stands, the Predators are going to win, because they're going to score on this power play. And I think Bruce Cassidy, I'd be getting down pretty hard on my video guy for challenging that play, even though Zucker probably was offside. It was so close that I would not have taken the risk of putting the Predators on the power play there. But on that power play, Hal, they were so good at keeping the puck and not letting Vegas get possession of it, fire it down to the other end, and kind of break up the momentum. And it's like they are firing the puck across the ice, and they're taking passes that you have to be really skilled in order to be able to make. And it sets up guys like Nyquist shot or whatever. It's like I've never seen the Predators in all my years of watching them be able to maintain the puck in the offensive zone as well as this group has over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think what they do really well is, and I think that top line, O'Reilly kind of sets this tone. He doesn't just throw pucks away. He'll maintain possession. If he loses it, he's the first guy back picking up a stick and making and continuing to play and getting the puck back. And it's just that tenacious. They're saying relentless. I think when their power play is good, they're relentless on pucks. They put it to the net and they create chaos. And you can see Vegas was, chasing the puck and they felt like they had it. And then, Riley's picking up a stick and keeping a play alive. And then Forsberg's doing it. And it's those teams are, those are the teams that I hated playing against. You want a skill player that just kind of turns away and says, we'll get him next time. And those guys that continue to battle and work for pucks, those are the ones that are really hard to play against, and that's what you're seeing right now. That just needs to be more the norm during the rest of the game.
Hal Gill will be on the call tonight. It's a late one at 9 o'clock. The Predators go for points in 19 straight. Hal, great stuff. Appreciate you as always.
Sounds good. Enjoy the game tonight. Go get the dunks and stay up late with me.
There you go. Presented by Duncan. Hal Gill joining us on the program. I promised tickets for Tuesday night against the Bruins. Now would be your cue to call. I gave you a code word earlier. Don't call if you don't know the code word. 615-737-1025. And if you're the first one that knows the code words for Ian, you'll be going to the game to see the Predators take on the Bruins. Good luck on that front. Let's talk about Window Nation. March is a critical time to check your home's windows. If yours are cracked or leaking and they won't open or stay open, then it is time to call the pros at Window Nation. Because right now, it's more affordable than you think to get those windows fixed finally. Because right now, for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 windows free, plus 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 24 months. With proven quality and service, it's no wonder why thousands trust Window Nation. So do not miss out. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. Again, that's for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 free, 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 24 months. That's 866-90-NATION, windownation.com, and schedule that free in-home estimate today. There you go. Predators Game Day is presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with my realtor. That's TJ Anderson. Tonight, the Predators go for points in 19 straight games when the 43-25-4 Nashville Predators, good for 90 points, take on the 30-37-5 Arizona Coyotes, 65 points. Ian, do you remember? It feels like just yesterday the Predators and the Coyotes were neck and neck.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, goodness gracious.
Coyotes were right behind.
Unbelievable. They'll be playing at Mullet Arena, that college arena that I actually really want to go to a game in. Like a Predators-Arizona game. I guess, I'm out of luck for this year. But I would really like to see what that's like. Anywho, the game is at 9 o'clock tonight. Max has the pregame at 8 o'clock as they get ready to take care of business. Here's what's important tonight for me, and that is watching the scoreboard, because the Predators have a legitimate shot to catch up with Winnipeg. Winnipeg takes on Vegas tonight. I assume that that's probably a late start as well. But here's kind of all the little nooks and crannies. You know the Predators are going to make the playoffs. That, I think, is obvious at this point. I think they have a 99.8% chance of making the playoffs. A win, according to MoneyPuck.com, would put them at 100%. But
Vegas is in Winnipeg, so 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, okay. So, you get basketball and that all at the same time. Right now, 4 points separates you. If they lose and you win, I mean, it's bang, bang right there, including one more matchup at home between the two teams to kind of settle who's going to be in the Central Division and who's going to have to be a wild card. Plus, Colorado takes on New York. I think you want Colorado to win. Dallas takes on Vancouver. You want Vancouver to win. So there is a lot of scoreboard watching to be done before Max comes on with the pregame show at 8 o'clock, which, again, includes Dallas and Vancouver, although that'll probably be a late game because it's in Vancouver. Colorado, New York, Vegas, and Winnipeg, they all affect you. And then, of course, you tonight going for points in 19 straight. That's it for us. Stillman and Company, the number one show in drive time here in Nashville. Coming up next will be a replay of our 2 o'clock hour. Stillman and Company, enjoy that, and we will see everybody tomorrow too.